We know there are many choices in internet radio, and the staff and host of LA Talk Live would like to thank you for choosing the internet's hottest destination for the most eclectic sound and invigorating talk. This is LA Talk Live. We are more than just talk.
And now, special guest host for this segment of Here's to Your Health, Yvonne Beauvais, wellness editor of Elegant Living magazine, and now your host, Yvonne Beauvais.
Hello, this is Yvonne, and welcome to Here's to Your Health. And our special guest and my special friend is Linda Dolson. So, welcome to Here's to Your Health.
Thank you, Yvonne. It's wonderful to be here.
It's a pleasure to have you. I'm excited for people to hear about who you are and what you do.
Oh, thank you.
Linda is a certified traditional naturopathic practitioner.
Yes,
okay?
That's correct.
She's a graduate of the California College of Natural Medicine. She has additional certification in homeopathy, holistic health. She's a practitioner in neurophysical reprogramming specialist. And that's how I came to know Linda, because I was one of her clients. And it was the most, and still is the most phenomenal experience that I have ever gone through, that leads to more wholeness and moving forward in the totality of who God created you to be. So today, she is the program director and counselor for clients of Safe Passage, which is a 501c3 nonprofit that helps women break the cycle of domestic violence. And it transforms the emotional DNA, and what you get in the end is a healthy and confident woman. She helps to heal the effects of the domestic violence by bypassing the conscious mind, leading a person, man, woman, a child, to the core of an illness or emotional identity. And it accurately pinpoints, if I recall correctly, the causal energy pattern of any life condition. It determines its location in the body and then allows you to permanent release it. I call it an eviction.
Yes.
So what I'd like you to tell people, Linda, is what makes this different from standard counseling? We've all been to counselors and family counselors, and there's a standard practice to counseling.
Right.
But this is far different and so powerful and effective. So I'm going to turn it over to you now, and you
We
can
know
talk
there are
about
many
what you
choices
do.
in
Thank
internet
you.
radio, and
Well,
the staff and
regular
host.
counseling, traditional counseling, would be more talk out. It's to talk about the issues over and over again, trying to find out what the reason of their problems are, and what to do about it, where it came from.
Mhm.
And that can take years. Many people have come to me after 20 years of counseling, 10 years of counseling, and in 20 minutes, I've been able to go pinpoint the issue in their life and change that perspective of what they believe about themselves. And so this is a quick way of getting to what is the cause of an identity, let's say. An identity would be something that we believe about ourselves, something that we were told as a child or treated as a child or done to somewhere along the line.
Mhm.
That's changed our life. And it's an identity that we walk in, and it's how we see the world. We see it through that identity. And it's usually low self-esteem, being told they were stupid, or something along that line. Now, when we're dealing with women that I deal with mostly with Safe Passage, these women have been abused, and they keep drawing this abuser into their life. And what we say sometimes is they were abused as a child, they're marrying their father, they keep drawing that same thing. It's familiar to them. So they keep doing the same thing over and over again. So what we do is change that and change who they believe they are. So you not only eliminate the identity that has been the negative, but you put in a new positive identity, and that's what changes their lives. That's what they walk in, that new identity.
I do know some, which I don't subscribe to this, but there's a part of this that's true. When they identify what's wrong, and people think that they can just automatically begin to speak something good into their life and it's going to change, but it's not that. It's actually taking that emotion.
Right.
Let's take the one of being unloved, because
Right.
most people suffer from feeling unloved because people love imperfectly.
Right.
Even parents who love their children love imperfectly.
Right.
Though And so children have a perception, and maybe there was more to it. Perhaps there was violence in their life, or there could have been a molestation. There's things that happen that cause a child to feel unloved. So would you say this happens between the ages of birth and 6 years? What is that first segment of life that's affected?
It usually is. You usually figure out who you are by the time you're 5 or 6.
Okay.
And that's usually where it transpires. And yes, you figured out whether you're loved, you're in the way, you weren't wanted, all these different things. It's amazing. But where it's taken in is the subconscious. And that is our conscious mind, we can tell it anything we want, and we do. But it's the subconscious that knows the truth, and it's the subconscious that understands their perception of what they believed was the truth when they were young. So that is where you need to change, is the subconscious, because whatever the subconscious believes, and there's so many studies done on this, that whatever the subconscious believes is what is your reality, and it's what you bring about in your life. So you have to change that thought. And you change your mind, you change your life. It totally is true.
That is very true. It's interesting that you talked about, that being the true person. And we look at the high level of divorce rate that we have, because people think they're marrying the person that they meet on the outside, the one who has a successful career, and they dress well, and they speak well, and they have great etiquette, and they know how to handle themselves in public, and they're acclaimed by the world. But in effect, that could be a ruse unconsciously.
Absolutely.
And that the true person that they're marrying is the invisible person. And in time of being in a relationship, that person begins to come out, and the person says, okay, who are you?
Right.
That's the real person.
That's the real person that's coming out. But it's also, there is a familiarity with people, and they don't really know it. They see something in that person that's familiar. Let's say he's an abuser, and she was abused as a child, or he. There's a familiarity that's there that draws them. That's that energy that draws them to it, not even knowing, not even understanding why. And that's what needs to be changed. So you don't continue the cycle. You don't continue to draw that back into your life again.
In the area of abuse, do you feel, I mean, I have the answer, but I want our listening audience to hear today.
Right.
Do you feel that most people actually know that they're going into a bad situation, but they're so used to denying it and suppressing it that they overlook it and they say, oh, it's not really that bad, or I'm just imagining things, or...
Well, that's very, very true. And what we call it is red flags.
Okay.
So there are many red flags that we see along the line that we just say, oh, just put it aside. No, I'm, it's my imagination. The gut will tell you. It always does. It will tell you, no, there's something wrong here. This isn't quite right. Oh, that shouldn't have been said. That shouldn't have been done. And we just continue on down the line, and we get back into that same situation again. But yes, it's a lot of denial, absolutely.
So we have the conscious mind, where we have the perception of personality, we have our education, we have the way we perceive the world. Then there's this murky layer between the conscious mind and the subconscious mind, and that's where we've registered the hurts and the pains and the wounds, and where the denials and the projections and all those things exist in that realm.
Right.
So in this eviction process, we call it, you permanently release it, which is, I call it eviction.
Right.
It is a matter of identifying the root that's in there that the subconscious knows.
Right.
And could you explain the process of what that is when you finally get to the point of identifying it and having that person release it? Right. And I would like you to take that into the root of disease also. So
okay.
Take it from here.
Well, getting to the core is what I call it. Getting to the core of the identity and the root is a process that's done through a protocol called neurophysical reprogramming. And Teresa Dale is the one that has started this. And I learned that when I went to be a naturopath at the California College of Natural Medicine. It's a fantastic protocol, and it can be reproduced. The thing that is the most wonderful thing about it is it just takes a few questions that trigger the subconscious, and you may not even be aware. You ask this question or two over and over again, and it doesn't make too much sense to the conscious mind, but it triggers the subconscious, where out comes the core. I mean, it happens within 20 minutes. And it's an amazing process. I can't really explain in detail what it would be, but as you know, because you've been through it, it's when you talk to someone, they just, when they're done, they just go, I didn't imagine it was like this. This is amazing. This is,
But you know that when
but
it
you,
finally comes up, you go,
exactly.
oh, yeah.
And it's up and it's gone, and you feel it and you release it. And then during the process, we use homeopathic neurophysical reprogramming drops that help eliminate that identity out of your system and then replace that.
So as you evict it, there's a
Mhm.
process of eviction. So maybe you can
Yes.
go over that, because you actually guide a person evicting it from their thoughts, their
Right.
body cells.
Take it, yes.
So-
And you take it out of every part of their body, because it's, again, you're talking to the subconscious. So you want the subconscious to see it coming out of their cells, out of their blood, out of their DNA, their emotional DNA, body, soul, and mind, every part of their aspect. And they actually physically feel this identity leave them. It's amazing process, and I love it, because when they're done, they just feel so light and so wonderful, and they really feel good. It's not something where you've gone through this process and now you're exhausted, but you actually feel so much better.
So before this, when there are, let's say, the identity is unloved, or the identity is used, or the identity is unimportant, or it could
Right.
be any of those things. The identity could be anger, I suppose.
Mhm.
There are a myriad of life choices
Right.
that are made out of that identity. Thousands
Right.
of
Absolutely.
life choices that are made, and they are very self-sabotaging.
Mhm.
So could you elucidate on that a little bit, on the
Absolutely.
self-sabotaging part of those thousands of choices made out of the identity that it's a lie,
Right.
but it's believed?
It is believed.
Mhm.
And yes, it is self-sabotaging, especially when they feel, okay, let's say the identity is low self-esteem, for
Okay.
instance. So they have this low self-esteem. Well, where did it come from? So it's finding the core of where it came from, and then bringing that out, going back to that place, feeling it and eliminating it, and then bringing it forward. But you're self-sabotaging yourself until you can change that identity, because you have low self-esteem. You don't feel valued. So every single time you go into a situation, you're going to go into it with that person that feels less than. Everything you say, everything you do, how you walk, how you talk, everything is dependent on that reality.
You said something very important. It's the less, excuse me, it's the less than.
Yes.
And people tend to think everybody else has their life all together, and you're the
Right.
only one that has these issues, and you feel less than.
Yes.
So could you
Yes.
talk a little bit about that?
And that's something that I try to really instill in the women that I deal with, is that everybody else out there feels the same in some aspect of their life. No one has it all together. No one has got it made from one end to the other. And most people do feel less than, but they walk in what the perception they want people to believe is real. And
Yes.
Deep down inside, it's not. Deep down inside, they're feeling a little bit low self-esteem, or not quite as good as someone else. There's always people that feel everybody else is better than them. And that comes from childhood, whether it's in school or where it came from. Somebody said something. A parent may have said the slightest little thing to a little girl. Let's say their father said some little something, and that changed her identity and how she felt, and how she felt he felt about her. And that is brought into your whole life experience. But when we were talking about identities, and an identity could be anger, like an angry person or a resentful person or something like that. That is where disease starts. You see, the emotions are connected to organs, and anger is connected to the liver, and resentment is connected to the gallbladder. So as we suppress these emotions, it weakens that particular organ that the emotion is related to. So It may be we start out when we're doing a process, the emotion comes up anger, but where did that anger come from?
Mhm.
What was the issue in their life that started this?
So we've also come to see that bitterness is behind cancer.
Absolutely.
And many times there's toxins, yes. I mean, I'm an advocate for all of this in the wellness industry to teach people to eat
Oh,
organic and to
absolutely.
stay away
yes.
from GMOs
Mhm.
and how to use essential oils versus drugs.
Right.
So that's certainly part of it. But I'm also very cognizant of the fact that that bitterness could take years of developing inside of the body and
Right.
all of a sudden they have cancer, but it didn't happen overnight. Maybe it happened over 5, 10, 20 years,
Right.
depending on the degree of bitterness that is there, that it's being harbored, and
Mhm.
all of a sudden you have disease in the body.
Well, that also, you see, that goes back again to the subconscious. The subconscious will cause you to do certain things that bring all this on also.
Oh.
You see, it's a whole thing. It's a holistic approach.
Mhm.
Yes, you need to deal with the emotions. Absolutely. Emotions are very, very important in health. But the emotions will cause you to do certain things that will bring on cancer, will bring on different health issues.
Mhm.
Again, self-sabotage. That's what it is.
So these emotions can um, direct someone perhaps into drug abuse,
Mhm.
alcohol,
Absolutely. You see, there you go.
promiscuity,
Mhm.
because if they're feeling unloved, all those things, they're all temporary drugs to kill the pain.
That's right.
Smoking.
Absolutely.
Oh, interesting.
And that all comes from either your pain or who you believe you are.
Mhm.
You believe that you're less than, and so you act it out.
And the body responds to
And the
whatever
body
you believe.
responds. Absolutely, yes.
So I'd like to talk a little bit about Safe Passage because I know you do a lot of counseling there to a lot of
Yes.
women who come in. Some of them come in with broken faces. Some of them
Yes.
come in with broken souls. They have been beaten, abused, and disenfranchised. And all those they were directed really towards taking a woman's life out because I know when a woman's in an abusive situation, 40% of them are killed upon leaving. They're murdered upon leaving an
Right.
abusive
Absolutely.
relationship. So it's very serious. And the whole thing to get women out
It
safely,
is.
alive in one piece, and then you have to help them to reconstruct their life.
That's right. And Safe Passage is amazing. I've been with them for 6 years. It was founded by Trish Steele,
Mhm.
and she was abused herself, and so she's got this 501c3 charity that's just growing immensely right now. But what we do with the women when they come to us, they're pretty broken.
Mhm.
They really are, and they're stuck. They may have a life. They may have gotten a job. They may, be moving forward, but they're really not. They're stuck emotionally. They're afraid to get into a relationship because chances are if they haven't been healed, they will draw that abuser back into their life again. Because there is something about a woman that's been abused that walks and talks and acts a certain way, and those abusers out there recognize that and they draw these people back into their life. They are familiar with it again, that word familiar,
Mhm.
to certain things, and people go that direction. So it's about healing that. It's about breaking the cycle of domestic violence and also getting the children healed.
Mhm.
They've witnessed abuse, and that's very traumatic. They may have not been abused themselves, but the witnessing of that, we see that an abuser or somebody that's been abused becomes an abuser.
Mhm.
So that whole cycle has to be broken there. But the women, they really love this the counseling that we do because it really does change who they believe they are. And most of them have been beaten down so badly by either emotionally or physically that they just don't feel good about themselves at all.
And many of them are disenfranchised, and now they have a hard time on top of everything,
Absolutely.
economically providing for themselves and their children.
Yes.
So they have an enormous burden and really not the tools to carry through.
That's true.
Mhm.
And Safe Passage does do that for them. We change them on the inside and on the outside. We get them ready for jobs. We go as far as if they need plastic surgery,
Mhm.
broken noses and broken teeth. We get that taken care of
Mhm.
for them. And also, we prepare them to go back into the work field.
Mhm.
And a lot of them haven't worked in a long time, and they don't even know how to run a household. Usually men isolate these women and take over everything. So they've not done much for themselves.
So they don't know how to manage
A
money.
lot of them don't.
That could be
Yeah.
scary.
Yes.
It's very scary.
Yes.
And they don't know how to take care of their paperwork or their insurances or
Mm-mm.
any of those
No,
things.
but we help them with all of that and get
Okay.
them ready
And
to.
housing?
And housing, yes, we have a program for housing that is when they're ready to leave.
Mm-hmm.
We're working with a wonderful a land owner that has owns apartments, and he's been very gracious in allowing us to have one or two as our women graduate to get them going out
Awesome.
into the world.
That's
Yes.
excellent. So I know that I wanted to talk a little bit about the subconscious mind. And we talked a little bit about it, about how the body will absolutely respond to whatever the subconscious mind believes.
Absolutely.
I mean, it will. You can plant anything in the subconscious.
Mhm.
If you plant corn, you're going to get corn. You plant tomatoes, you're going to get
Right.
tomatoes. If you plant love, you're going to get love. If you plant fear, you're going to get a myriad of things coming out of the fear.
Absolutely.
So a lot of these women are post-traumatic stress disordered
Yes.
and have an excuse me have an inability to cope with the smallest of decisions, and even the smallest things that happen cause meltdowns.
Right.
So could you talk a little bit about what that really looks like, that how the body responds to
Okay.
whatever that person invisibly believes? It's not what they're believing in their conscious mind, because the conscious
Yes.
mind can lie.
Right.
Yes, but the subconscious mind tells the truth.
Well, those are triggers. Those are things that have happened that trigger them. So, in the subconscious mind, when it's experiencing something or feeling something that is very familiar to it, where the conscious mind has tried to block it out, trying to deal with it on its level, but the subconscious still is very much aware of all that. So, certain things happen in their life that will trigger a certain thing that will give you a physical meltdown, that will
Mhm.
stop you in your tracks. And so much of it is fear based, because it's fear of this whole thing happening again. You know, that's it takes you right back there. It takes you right to that place. One little thing that could be a noise, something that could be said,
Mhm.
will take you, just like when the veterans come home and they have this, syndrome, that the noise can take them right back to the battlefield. It's the same thing with women. They've been through this. They've been through a battle, and it brings them physically to a halt, and they
Right.
can't move forward with their life.
So they're in a constant state of stress then.
They could be. They could be. They go in and out. They
Okay.
go. Some are better than others, but we do deal with this.
So what are some of the victorious stories that you can share with us today? How a woman was in the beginning, and you watch the progress, and by the time she graduates, what are some of the victorious stories that you
Oh,
can share with us?
yes, there's so many of them too. Well, we have had women that have come broken, very ill. Uh, we've had some that it just had operations on from cancer, but we took
Mhm.
her in, and she was crippled as a child, and ended up being a runner. But as she got out of her household, she ended up marrying an alcoholic.
Mm.
And she was very young, and she was just abused all the way down the line, just abused. She ended up in really some bad situations, but she's now owning her own business. She's
Oh.
out there in the world. She's very, very successful,
Mhm.
and she's totally healed. And she was a speaker for us for quite a while. She
Mhm.
went out and talked, about Safe Passage, because she believes so strongly in it. But there's so many stories.
Mm.
They it just you hear they're heartbreaking in the very beginning, but at the end, that they're going to be victorious, because Safe Passage has a 95% success rate.
That's high.
Yes, it is.
I think in standard counseling it's 65%, so that's very, very high.
Absolutely, yes. Well,
Mhm.
everybody asks what makes the difference. Why is this different than other places or other things? And truly, it's this process.
Mhm.
It's I'm just so grateful that I was taught it, and have been able to see these women healed. I mean, there's nothing better than to see this.
So I know that you also work with men and you work with children.
Absolutely, yes.
And what are some of the things that you see in the lives of men? Because the core issues are similar but different. Because
Yes.
the expectations upon a man and a woman are different because
Abs-
we're different.
Well, that's very true. But again, it's usually in childhood.
Hmm.
You know, a lot of men have issues either obviously with their mother or their father, but a lot of it is their father
Hmm.
and the example and being treated either not being heard, not
Hmm.
being, you know, acknowledged for what they've done. There's a lot of different things. I mean, I've done counseling with movie producers. I mean, very
Hmm.
successful men, but they still have these issues deep down inside that it makes them feel less than what they want to feel, or there's hurts or anger. Men usually get angry.
Hmm.
It's a lot of anger. Hurt turns to anger, and so that needs to be really addressed because that can come up, and the more you suppress it, then there's your health issue again.
Okay, so what are some of the health things? I mean, we've talked about cancer,
Mm-hmm.
and you talked about liver, and we talked about the gallbladder. So, what are
Right.
some of the health issues that seem to be predominantly fueled by this woundedness in the subconscious realm?
Okay, well, most of the health issues, actually, most of this that I work on
Hmm.
predominantly is anger.
Okay.
It's huge, huge. And even though they seem very meek, deep down inside there's this anger, rage
Mm.
that goes on to have been treated like this. And so that is a big issue, and the resentment. A lot of gallbladder issues out
Oh,
there.
interesting. Okay, so resentment's behind. Did you hear that, everybody? It's resentment in your gallbladder.
That's right, definitely. And then of course there it's funny. Lungs is a grief,
Hmm.
and you can grieve about, like I was telling you earlier, you can grieve about a lot of different things,
Hmm.
and it doesn't have to be just a loss of a person. It can be loss of a job, it can be loss of a relationship, a loss of a dream, a
That's
loss of
big,
many
isn't it?
things.
Loss of a
Yes,
dream. Hmm.
yes, and we do find that a lot. That women feel like they can't move forward. They're just there's not hope. A
Oh.
lot of them come with no hope. And once they realize that they're loved, we
Hmm.
love on them, we care for them. That's, the important things
Hmm.
that we do.
Well, I know you have a big event coming up in October at the Lux Hotel off of the
Yes.
405. Could you tell us a little bit about how Safe Passage funds themselves and
Yes.
what the event is all about?
Okay. October is Domestic Violence Awareness Month,
Hmm.
and this is our annual event that we do. It's going to be, like you said, at the Lux Hotel right off the 405. And it will be a fundraiser, but there will be a lot of celebrities as usual. And you just come out and have a really good time.
Well, this sounds wonderful, and I'd just like to recap here for Linda because thank you so much.
Oh,
And I
thank
actually know the
you.
power of all of this. It's an amazing process. Again, she's Linda Dolson, a certified traditional naturopathic practitioner, and she is a neural physical reprogramming specialist. And she will help, she's the one to reveal what's hidden underneath, bring it to the conscious mind so that you can evict it. You can tell it to leave basically, and the subconscious mind will respond to that. And out of that, people are able to make new and healthy life choices that no longer self-sabotage,
Yes.
but they build. And since our whole life is lived out of our emotions, it's a good thing to have a healthy emotional body, yes?
Absolutely.
Because our loves and our lives and our family and so much that we do are right out of that emotional realm.
Absolutely. Yes.
So I really thank you today.
Thank you.
It was just awesome.
Yeah.
I know this lady very well, and it's what you do is really a beautiful. It's an art,
Oh, well,
and it's a
thank you.
gift to those who receive it.
Oh, wow.
Thank you, Linda.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Thank you. Thank you for listening us today on Welcome. Here's to your health, huh? Here's to your health and your healthy emotions.
Yes, absolutely.
Hi, this is Dr. Levi, your fitness doctor, making a personal house call, inviting you to join me Wednesday at 10 a.m. Pacific for my all-new show, The Dr. Levi Show. Join us as we discuss fitness, health, and well-being, including emotional and spiritual health. So don't forget to tune in to The Dr. Levi Show every Wednesday at 10 a.m. Pacific, exclusively on latalklive.com and the Talk Live Broadcast Network. You can also catch us on iTunes, Radio R&B, or watch us on Ustream.tv, or catch us on the Live 365 network, and now on Radio Flag and Stitcher Radio. Reality radio handcrafted for your listening pleasure. This is LA Talk Live, and we are more than just talk.
Hi, this is Elena, inviting you to join me every Wednesday at noon for Elena's Beauty Talk and more, exclusively on LA Talk Live. You can also catch us on iTunes Radio, R&B, or watch us on Ustream.tv. Reality radio, handcrafted for your listening pleasure. This is LA Talk Live, and we are more than just talk.
Joshua Lane, member of the board of directors of Dr. Ann Wigmore's Hippocrates Health Institute, Josh Lane was part of the Dr. Ann Wigmore team that brought wheatgrass, sprouts, and raw foods to a worldwide audience. And now the host of Here's to Your Health on LA Talk Live, Joshua Lane.
We're back. Thank you for tuning in to this edition of Here's to Your Health on the LA Talk Live television network. I'm your host, Josh Lane. And my guest is Yvonne Beauvais, who's the wellness editor for Elegant Living magazine. This is a new issue of Elegant Living. Mariel Hemingway on the front cover. Mariel looking fantastic, actually, on the front cover. And Yvonne Beauvais, thank you for being my guest today.
Oh, it's always my pleasure to be here, Josh.
Happy to have you here today. So Mariel looks good. I know your topic today is essential oils. Is there anything that I can use, or Mariel can use, or any of us can use to make our skin look this lovely?
Myrrh.
Oh, myrrh. Okay.
Myrrh
yeah.
is excellent. They've been using it since the time. I mean, you can go even into the biblical story of Queen Esther when she went through her year of purification. And the first 6 months basically were treatments with oil. They took olive oil and they would mix it with myrrh, and they would anoint the body and rub it into the whole body. And what it does is it caused toxins to come out and to be eliminated from the skin.
Mm-hmm.
So it was actually a time of purification, of healing the body from any kind of a ailment or parasites or anything that might be in there that would have made her less than receivable by the king.
I gotcha. Right. Yeah, myrrh is, frankincense and myrrh both seem in the natural food stores reasonably popular again.
It is.
The past, say, 3, 4, 5 years. And of course, they were very big 2,000 years ago.
Yes, they
and,
were.
And they're big now, and they really do help to beautify the skin.
They really do. And people even who have growths on their skin, maybe I hear everybody kind of say frankincense is like God in a bottle. It's just amazing that.
Well, that's a nice fragrance. That's a nice statement.
It is. You can take it internally, and they're doing studies right now that have shown its effects on cancer and its effects on tumors used topically. So you can take it internally. You can put it into a little capsule. If you're brave, you could put it under your tongue, but it's easier in a capsule. And you can, breathe it in aromatically, but it does have an effect, kind of a again, detoxifying, antibiotic, purgative type of an effect on the body. Mm-hmm. And 1 drop of essential oil, I love this amount. I just love it. I wish I could count this high, is 40 million trillion molecules to 1 drop of essential oil. And it delivers like 40,000 molecules to every cell in your body. Right. 1 drop. It's that powerful. It will penetrate into your skin when you use it topically within 20 seconds. Will go right into the bloodstream. You can put them on the soles of your feet, on your wrists, on the back of your neck. And on the soles of your feet are the largest pores on your whole body. So let's say someone has a hard time sleeping at night. Mm-hmm. You can take a lavender, for instance, or a blend that has lavender that may have Roman chamomile or chamomiles or different ingredients. There's some citrus blends that are very calming. and actually put it on the soles of your feet, and it's in your body within 20 seconds, and will have a very, without using prescriptions that will toxify and clog receptors eventually in your body and stay in the liver. These will go exactly to where they need to go, and then the body naturally eliminates them.
Right. Now, frankincense and myrrh are essential oils,
Yes.
and we can use those topically on the skin for a variety of things. Some of them actually reasonably serious. I believe some people are using frankincense for cancer,
Yes.
and possibly myrrh, and those are taken internally and topically. But some essential oils are just used topically. Is that correct? Or are they not used at all? Are there some things that we should not put on the skin?
You can use them all topically on the skin, but there are some that are hot. You can use, like for instance, oregano. It's a hot oil, or cinnamon is a hot oil, and so you need to cut it with either fractionated coconut oil or jojoba oil or an olive oil or a hemp seed oil.
I see.
Those are, and always get organic. You want
Right.
to make sure that it's a clean oil, and you have 95% will be the carrier oil and maybe 5% your volatile active oil. But I did try the oregano straight one time, and it's true. It's hot, and it burns, and it leaves a red mark on the skin. So
Ah.
I cut it in an oil, and you can apply it topically. If you have a wound on the body, you can put, it's an antibiotic. It has an antibiotic action, so it will cleanse a wound. And if you have a flu or a cold or even candida, you can use the melaleuca, which is a tea tree oil. You can use the frankincense and what were we just saying? The
Myrrh.
oregano.
Oregano, yeah.
Oregano, yes, oregano. And you can actually apply them topically by cutting them into an oil and placing it on the abdomen, the wrist, the back of the neck, soles of
Right.
the
So
feet.
some medicinal herbs, like I know oregano can be taken internally for colds and flu,
Yes,
etc. And it could also be used topically.
Yes, you can just put it in liquid if you like. If you have a glass of water with a juice in it, and you can put your oregano drops and gulp it down. It's not my favorite taste. Kind of tastes like a pizza. You know, it tastes like oregano.
A very stark pizza.
Yes.
And so the advantage of the frankincense, the essential oil, is it just another delivery system? Let's say you choose, I don't feel like swallowing a capsule or a spoonful of liquid. I can just use the carrier oil. So it's just another choice for me
Yes.
to use a medicinal herb. Is that what it is?
Well, some of them you cannot take internally. Most of them you can. I
Right.
work with a company where they're certified therapeutic grade organic oils.
What oils? What company is that?
I've been working with a company called doTERRA, and I've been working with essential oils for a long time. I mean, we can go back as a very young person. I in the 70s, I was already interested in the health food store researching all of these. And at the time, you couldn't take them internally. You could only apply them topically or use them aromatically. So sometimes they had diffusers, and you could put it in a diffuser,
Right.
and it would fill the whole room. It actually kill bacteria and molds and things in the room by using it. So if you had a respiratory infection, you could be putting, let's say, melaleuca, and it would actually clean the environment just aromatically. Or you can take an oil and rub it in your hands and put your hands over your breathing, your nose and your mouth, and breathe it in, and that works. And they're actually odor molecules that will go in, and they go to the olfactory system, and then they have an effect on the limbic system, so they'll actually affect your moods. So people that have let's say they're dealing with a depression or ADD or ADHD, these oils will actually have a non-drug effect, and not just to calm, but to actually begin to heal a person.
I was told by someone who works with frankincense and myrrh specifically as oils that the church, for thousands of years, always used frankincense in all the masses of the church, every service, because they felt it evoked a positive mood in the congregants. And I thought that was very interesting.
It does. It's a resin. Frankincense and myrrh are both resins, so it's a hard resinous material. So they would use it because it actually burns. It's it burns like an incense also. But these are actually extracted into an oil compound, and they're very effective. I've been using the oils for quite a while, and I've always trusted them. But when I got a hold of this particular one by doTERRA, I was really encouraged. I had there were all these lung things that were going around in the earlier part of the year, and so I started applying the melaleuca. And there was one called it's like a thieves oil, And
What oil?
thieves oil. In the time, I'm trying to think of what they call this particular one. It'll come back to me. But during the time of the bubonic plague, they would take a combination of 5 oils. There was an orange or a lemon, and they used clove and rosemary and eucalyptus.
And probably garlic.
Well, that was, I think, for the vampires.
Yeah.
Excuse me. No, I'm
Right.
just kidding. And the thieves would rub this on their body, and they would go and they were the grave robbers, so they would rob the people that had died of bubonic plague, and they would not come down with it. So they have an oil that is similar to this, and you can use it when you catch a cold or a flu. They have one called Breathe, and you can apply it over your chest area, and it actually goes in. And it might take a few days longer than using a prescription, and I'm not going to nix prescriptions.
Right.
They have their place,
Right.
you know. But a lot of us are rethinking how we're taking care of our bodies, because unfortunately with prescriptions, they do stay in the body and they do stay in the liver.
Right.
And they do clog receptor sites,
Right.
and they are toxic.
Right.
And most of them I hear on, if I don't really watch TV, but once in a while I might be at someone's home and I'll see a commercial, and this has one of the fear factors is that this could cause your death. Now, there's an 85% mortality rate, and I'm like, oh, I don't know that I want to take that. And so that really began my search. As you well know, I've been into this wellness industry for a long time, and other ways that I can be responsible for my own health and take
Right.
care of myself.
Exactly right.
And the oils was one of the things that I began to research more heavily again. I lost touch with it in the 90s somehow. I just did. And then in the early 2000s, this company came about, and I started to research it, and I started to work with it, and I was really impressed with its effectiveness. So, so we have some common ones. For instance, like drugs and essential oils work in different ways.
Yes.
Drugs toxify, they clog, and they confuse receptor sites. Oils detoxify, they unclog, and they clean receptor sites. For instance, they have a lemon. It's a lemon oil. And if you put it in a styrofoam cup, because it's a petroleum product, it will actually eat its way through the cup in just a few minutes. It'll have a hole in the bottom of the styrofoam
The
cup.
lemon, because
The lemon oil.
it's so some lemon rind. Is that what?
It's a whole lemon, the
Okay.
juice, the rind, the oil,
Right.
everything is compressed. And I'm not sure how many lemons it takes to make a bottle, but it's a lot.
Okay.
And it's
good.
very powerful. So you could take a bottle of water and add 2 drops. If you want to add a little juice, and you drink that every day, and that actually will help to cleanse your body of petroleum. We have all kinds of petroleum products that we've used on our skins, lotions. It's in the atmosphere. We have, all kinds of. We have mercury. We have
Unfortunately, yes, we do.
even Vaseline, which is a petroleum product. There's just an enormous amount, and a lot of our medications are petroleum based. So that will actually break it down so the body can eliminate it.
Right.
They have cilantro oil that eliminates heavy metals that will help to
Oh yes, I've read that.
purge the
actually.
body of mercury. And then there's lead, and there's cadmium, there's all kinds of aluminum metals that we're subjected to in our world today because of our industrialization and chemicals.
Let me talk about one which has been very popular for a long time, and that is tea tree oil.
Okay.
And tea tree oil is used topically for various skin issues. Is that one of the biggest of the essential oils, or most popular or widely used?
It's really widely used, and I really love it. The other name for tea tree oil is called Melaleuca. And you can put it on your gums. You can add it to your toothpaste, or just put it on your finger and wipe it over your gums before you go to sleep at night, and it will heal any gum disorder, and your gums will start to grow back. It will stop the bleeding of the gums. It's pretty amazing. You can use it for candida. If you took a few drops and put it in your beverage and drink that down, that helps to fight off candida. So that's a yeast. So obviously, it's
So like you were thinking, like say, 1-2 drops in 8 ounces of water. Is that it?
no
one
more.
drop,
It's
one
probably
drop.
1 to 2 drops.
Okay, plenty.
You could do that maybe once or twice a day, depending on how disciplined you are. Because a lot of this is just discipline. You have to make it a way of life.
Sure.
So when I wake up in the morning, the first thing I have is a glass of water. I put in 2 drops of lemon, and I add a little cranberry, pure cranberry, to that. So it's going to cleanse the petroleum. It's going to cleanse my kidneys and my bladder because of the cranberry that's in there. And then it's fluid. It's that first fluid in the morning that helps to flush your whole system.
Sure thing.
So if you have coffee, which I have 1 cup and I enjoy my coffee, I always have something afterwards to help to flush it out of my system. So, there's patchouli is another one. It's a strong aromatic one, but that has a lot of positive effects on the emotions.
Really?
Yeah,
Patchouli, really?
patchouli. I know we wore
Okay,
that
patchouli,
in
all
our
right.
hippiedom days.
Right, uh-huh.
I still like it.
And so what does patchouli do for me?
Patchouli will help you with the mood. It's a mood lifter.
Oh, I see. Oh,
And they have one product called Whisper that women can wear, and it's a combination of different oils, and patchouli being the predominant one. It's really a beautiful fragrance, but it helps to balance out a woman's hormones and helps with her mood. And a man can wear patchouli, and it helps with his mood too.
okay.
I
I did not know this. Okay.
Yeah, so and I like them because they're all natural. They come from the earth. They're earth-based. They're not man-made. They're
Is patchouli the name of the flower?
patchouli, isn't that terrible? I know patchouli oil, and I haven't researched. Patchouli comes from patchouli.
Okay. Oh, I did not know. I've never seen I do not know.
I buy patchouli in a bottle. I'll have to research it
All
since
right.
we brought that up today.
And patchouli is, I use like 1 or 2 drops in like in a carrier oil. Is that it?
You
So
can-
I do
yes.
have to heavily dilute it.
It is better, I think, to put it in a carrier oil. I like jojoba for a carrier oil. It's nice. It's smooth. It's not greasy. Your skin's going to absorb it right away. You can use hemp seed oil. Olive oil is a little bit heavier. You can put these things in your bathtub. You can add them to salts, and if you want to do
All right.
a
So
salt soaking, and you can add the oils. Lavender is really nice.
well, lavender is terribly popular. Is
it's
that
very-
also very calming? The lavender? Is that why everyone's using it now?
Yes, it's very calming.
Very calming.
Very,
right?
very
Mhm.
calming. So we have, there's chamomile, there's eucalyptus, geranium. I love geranium. It's called the poor man's rose, but that
Really?
also has a very balancing. It has an effect on your mood and your state of well-being, which I like. Lavender, lemon, peppermint is great for your digestion.
Yes.
It's wonderful for your digestion. Rosemary has an antibiotic along with sandalwood. So you have rosemary, you have sandalwood, you have oregano. On Guard is the one that is like the thieves oil. It's a combination, but they all have an antibiotic type action on the body. We talked about the frankincense, myrrh, the patchouli, oregano, melaleuca, and ylang ylang. And I like ylang ylang. That is also kind of mood, but you can add it in with other oils, and it's kind of a balancing. Spruce is good for
Excuse me. So how do I pronounce that last one? Lang ylang?
ylang ylang. Ylang, ylang.
And that is a individual. It's not a blend. That's an individual flower.
It's just an individual flower. And a lot of these things are extracted. They're aromatic essences, and they're extracted from flowers and bark and saps and gums and resins and roots and seeds and perennial grasses and other plants. And they produce an array of therapeutic. They have an array of therapeutic effects on the body.
I see. And go back to lang lang. What does that do for me?
It's good to mix. It's very common, and it's used to mix with other oils, and it has, I think, just a sense of well-being that it gives, and it smells beautiful.
Because that one seems very popular, and I just was wondering.
It is. I like jasmine too, so I'll take the ylang ylang and mix it with the jasmine. And rose oil is actually amazing. If you can put even a little rose oil in your hands and breathe it, and you can combine it with the ones that I just mentioned. You can add it to geranium, to the jasmine, and a little ylang ylang, and you'll actually have a natural perfume. And there's so many people these days that are allergic to chemicals, and
right.
And I
Yes.
happen to love fragrance, but I find in a lot of public places, because I have so many friends that seem to have these allergies to these things, I don't wear my regular perfume anymore, but I wear a combination of oils. And where I worship, there's a friend of mine who has a problem with perfume, so I never wear perfume there, so I can give her a hug.
Well, actually, the problems with perfumes are very widespread, and I think most businesses have policies against employees wearing perfumes in the workplace. I mean, that's been in place for a while now.
It has been, and for those that like to wear something, you can wear essential oils, and it won't cause anybody an
Right.
allergic problem.
Right.
Very
But-
seldom is someone allergic to an oil.
Yes, but the petrochemicals, people are sensitive, headaches, all sorts of breathing difficulties.
Yes.
I mean, it's not a joke. When people wear perfumes, and if you have a bad reaction, they think, well, what's wrong with you? I'm just wearing these perfumes, because they don't really realize, oh, no, these perfumes are problematic. It's almost like when people used to smoke everywhere. If you objected, people thought, well, what's your problem? And it just took 50 years before people said, okay, we realize that's a bad idea. There's no smoking in the workplace now. There's no smoking in schools, no smoking in
Right.
restaurants. It's just the question of consciousness kind of filtering through society.
Well, that is true, and it also winds up in a person's liver, which is no fun.
Right.
So all of those things, your skin is your largest organ, and it's your largest carrier for anything that you put on it. So many times I look at ingredients on everything. If there is lauryl sodium sulfate, that I nix that right away because
Right.
that goes right to your liver, and
Right.
all those poisons accumulate. And I noticed in a lot of people a lot of skin aberrations, and I think a lot of it is just years of products that we've been told that if you don't use this, you're not going to be beautiful, you're not going to be young, you're not going to smell good, you're not going to be fresh, you won't be acceptable, you're not going to be loved. So
Yvonne, that about wraps it up, I think. Yes, it does, really does. Uh-huh.
so people bought them.
Mm-hmm.
And the truth is, people do want things that will make their skin feel
Mhm.
soft and their breath nice, and they do want to smell good, but there are alternative means that are actually healthy, and when you put them on your skin, they'll actually go in and do not only good on the outside, but they do good on the inside too.
Okay, so tell my listeners what a couple of oils that I can maybe rub on my hands or put on my face that just really make my skin look good. What can I do? What's your favorites?
Myrrh is really good for the skin.
Myrrh,
Myrrh is really good. A lemon is very healing for acne. Again, it breaks down the oil because it'll break down petroleum, but it breaks down the sebum too. So you can take and put that in a oil-based cream, and you can add the lemon and actually put that on the skin.
Like a drop of that?
A
in the cream?
drop. If you put a little bit of, you get an organic oil-based, non-fragrant, non-chemical type of a carrier. And anybody with acne is not going to like oil. Oil is not their friend, so I would not even suggest the jojoba, but just an oil-based cream. And they can put the lemon oil in there, and that has the Melaleuca has an antibiotic action on the skin. And myrrh is.
So Melaleuca, commonly called tea tree. Now people buy that. This is not super exciting, but don't they buy it for athlete's foot? Isn't athlete's foot a biggie there?
Yeah.
It takes athlete's foot.
Yes, because we talked
Without
about
chemicals?
candida, which
Right.
is what? It's a yeast.
Yes.
And so this is a fungal situation,
Mhm.
and so it works on any kind of a fungus situation on the body. It's good for the nails. If people get a nail infection, they can put it on the nail. And if you just want to grow your nails out nice and have nice, healthy nails, because a lot of women have their nails done, but I don't do that anymore, though I did because of the chemicals. So
You decided didn't want to work with the chemicals
I didn't want to
anymore.
work
Right. Mhm.
right because I really went through a large detox, and it took a while because I did have mercury poisoning, and my mercury poisoning is what led me into many truths about taking care of my health.
Right.
So sometimes that which is meant for bad eventually gets worked out for good.
Yes. Sometimes.
Sometimes.
And of course, mercury is still found in many of the vaccinations
Yes.
we receive in the United States.
Mhm.
That this seems like a problem,
Right.
and people say, "Oh, but there's such a small amount of mercury." But what that fails to take into account is the minute size of the human cell and of the cell's vulnerability to alien substances.
Yes.
And of course, in Japan, industrialized nation, mercury has been banned in vaccines for I think maybe 15 or 16 years now.
Mhm. Well, we're just developing an awareness in this country. I think it's been overlooked. But I think a lot of parents are making wise decisions as not to vaccinate their children. And to be inoculated and vaccinated are two different things.
Right. Exactly
So
right. That's true.
immunization is good,
Right.
but vaccinated is not.
Right.
So we do have to be, and they put them in the mercury in the vaccine to preserve it. If it was just a vial that had one immunization in it, there would be no need, but they
Right.
put it in there to preserve it so you can get 10 or 20
Mhm.
dosages out of it. But
Right. Just a convenience for them, not
Yes.
necessarily for the consumer, which is us.
right, and there's many theories. We have a high level of broad spectrum based autisms, from Asperger's to more full blown autism, and it's increasing. We seem to have a high rise of whether it's really true or not, a diagnosis of bipolar and mood disorders and ADD and ADHD. And I have to look at the level of chemicals that we've all been subjected to and how that affects the neurological system in a
Right.
person.
It does seem possible that the chemicals, pesticides, insecticides, fungicides, other things, can be problematic and can affect different people in different ways.
Right. I mean, I write articles on the GMOs and organic and why to eat that way, because of it's an unnatural food and the body can't assimilate it and it receives it as a poison.
Right.
So
Right.
there's many, even what the emotions. I mean, the emotions will have an effect on someone's health. So we have to take
Yes.
the whole holistic person into consideration in dealing with our health. But this is a way for people to begin to take responsibility, and it's really fun working with the oils. I think that's the thing that I've enjoyed the most. And the most exciting thing is to see how it works. For instance, for your fingernails, for women that want to grow long fingernails, you can take wheat germ oil or jojoba oil, And you can add 2 drops of lemon. There's a product called Citrus Bliss, which is a combination of orange and bergamot and tangerine and vanilla. And you add that.
That sounds good.
It
actually.
is a little frankincense and a little myrrh. Those are good for the fingernails, and you can take that every day, just while you're put a drop in your thumb and work it in all your fingernails. And I'll guarantee you, in 1 month, your nails will look so nice and so natural and so healthy, and they'll grow.
Huh.
And it keeps them supple so they're not brittle. And you didn't have to put any chemicals on your nails to have them. And you just find a little bottle that's clean at home that has a little like dropper or something, so you can just do a drop at a time. It's potent.
That sounds good.
It really works.
That sounds like a good, I use the word home remedy in a nice way. I mean, it's like it's a remedy that's
Yeah.
probably very old and that works now, been revived.
A little rosemary in the hair is just amazing.
Oh, really?
Little rosemary oil in your shampoo. It's just excellent. So all those things work. The oils have a very profound physiological and a psychological effect. So it's not just the health of the body, but the thing that I've noticed the most is the psychological effects and the calming and the effects of well-being that happen. There's one called Balance. And I don't remember everything in there but the spruce. And I have become a lover of the smell of spruce. Oh my
Spruce.
goodness, it is amazing.
Kind of a outdoorsy kind of a smell.
Yes, it's
uh-huh.
an amazing
Right.
smell. And it actually creates a sense of balance and well-being. So in our very high-pressured stress world, racing around in California freeways and everything needs to be done yesterday, and if you don't do this, this is going to happen. It's like, oh, It's
Right.
like, we can begin to feel a little unbalanced. And so many times people, and having a glass of wine I love, nothing wrong with that. I'm like you. I have no judgments on any of those things. I enjoy a glass of wine. But during the day, you can't do
Well,
that.
I have lots of judgments, but I keep them to myself mostly, really.
Probably the smartest
They don't
thing to
fly
do.
always, so
They
you know,
don't.
all right.
So, but you can't do that on
Uh-huh.
your working day. But you could take a little of the Balance oil and put it in the back of your neck and your wrist, and you'll discover in about 5 minutes you're going, oh, I feel better.
Oh, that's nice. Oh,
I
that's
just
good.
feel
Oh, good.
a lot
Okay.
calmer.
Oh, good.
So there are ways to do things that are actually good for you, psychologically and physiologically. It's a balance, basically.
Okay, let me hear. Tell my listeners a few of the calming oils that I can put behind my neck or on the palms of my hand or wherever. Tell me.
Well, lavender is one of them.
Lavender.
And
Lavender is kind of the biggie. Everyone likes lavender.
everybody likes lavender, and they
Right.
have the one called Serenity, which is a lavender blend. They have the Citrus Bliss, and they have one called this Elevation. There's a number of them, and they have a combination of a lot of the oils, and I don't know the ratios, but the Elevation will actually give you a sense that it affects the brain in a way. You know how endorphins will give you feeling, when you're in love and you fall in love and you're crazy and everything feels wonderful, and all of a sudden you start to exercise and everything's good and the world looks beautiful.
Mhm.
Everybody looks
Yes,
beautiful.
right. Mhm.
It's a wonderful place to be until you fall out of love and then it goes crashing.
Right.
But some of these oils will affect the olfactory and the limbic system in the brain that will actually create a brain chemistry naturally that will elevate your sense of joy and will elevate that sense of well-being and actually kick your endorphins in naturally.
And what essential oils are those, Yvonne?
Well, let's see. The Citrus Bliss is one of them. The Elevation, and I think the Elevation had. You'll find the geranium has an effect. The lavender has an effect. The florals like the rose and the jasmine and the ylang ylang.
And what is the name of the essential oil company that you prefer?
I like doTERRA. They're certified. They're organic, certified, therapeutic grade
That's
oils.
DOT.
It's small d o dash Terra, capital TERR, and it means
Oh, I see.
it means gift of the earth. It's
see.
in Latin, gift from the earth.
Are they a California company?
They are located out of Utah, but you can buy them globally around the world.
Right.
And I recently went to a seminar that they had, and I didn't realize how big they were. And I thought, oh, be no problem. We'll just go. Maybe there'll be 50 people. There was well over 400 people in this small room.
Well, that's very nice.
And these people were all excited, and they carried their little bottles in their purse, and they took these things out. Oh, have you tried that? And sharing their recipes, and people use them. They have like little necklaces that they'll wear that are made out of terracotta, and they'll put the oil on there. So they'll have kind of an aromatic essence, and they carry it and they'll put it on their wrist. I have the Elevation that I like during the day, that if I'm around stressful people, I just put a little bit on the back of my neck. It smells wonderful to begin with, and I don't know, I can handle it all just a little bit better.
Well, Yvonne Beauvais, that sounds very, very good. I'd like to thank you for being a guest today on Here's to Your Health. This is your new issue of your new magazine, Elegant Living, which just came out, a day or so ago?
Actually, it's been out for 2 weeks now.
Okay, 2 weeks.
And I have an article that I wrote in there on the essential oils, and there's information which people can reach me at. There's my email, and I'm happy to answer any questions. And it's one of the most exciting journeys that I've taken now in the area of wellness and
good.
learning to, taking care of ourselves.
Well, Yvonne Beauvais, thanks for being a guest today on Here's to Your Health. You've been listening to Here's to Your Health on the LA Talk Live television network. I'm your host, Josh Lane. We're going to take a short break, and we'll be right back after these important messages.
Hi, this is Starlet Quarles, and I'm inviting you to join us every Wednesday from 5 to 6 p.m. for a new show right here on LA Talk Live, The Dialogue, Real Talk, Real People. Join us as we discuss the topics that are relevant to today's generational leaders. So don't forget to tune in to The Dialogue, Real Talk, Real People, every Wednesday from 5 to 6 p.m. right here on latalklive.com. You can also catch us on iTunes Radio R&B, Live 365, Radio Flag, and now Stitcher Radio. Or watch and listen directly at latalklive.com. Reality radio handcrafted for your listening pleasure. This is LA Talk Live, and we are more than just talk.
Hello, this is Angela DeJoseph. Join me Thursday evenings at 6 p.m. Pacific for the Angela DeJoseph Show. Join me as we venture into health, wealth. We're going to give you news, interviews, and entertainment. You can also catch us on iTunes Radio, Live 365, Radio Flag, TiVo Radio, and now live on Facebook. Or watch and listen directly at latalklive.com. Reality radio handcrafted for your listening pleasure. This is LA Talk Live, and we are more than just talk.
This is Brett Chapin.
And this is Dorothy Dillingham Blue, inviting you to join us every Saturday at noon Pacific Standard Time for our show, La La Land Talk.
Join us as we talk with some of the top talent in LA. Artists' untold stories, your phone calls, and live on-location broadcasts have made La La Land one of the best sources in LA for everything entertainment.
So don't forget to tune in to La La Land Talk.
Exclusively on latalklive.com.
You can also catch us on iTunes Radio R&B, Live 365, Radio Flag, and now Stitcher Radio. Or watch and listen directly at latalklive.com.
Saturdays at noon Pacific Time. Find us on Facebook at facebook.com/LaLaLandTalk, Twitter, twitter.com/LaLaLandTalk. Reality radio handcrafted for your listening pleasure. This is LA Talk Live.
And we are more than just talk. I think we've got a Shakespeare monologue or two we could do. Yeah?
Jazz hands.
Kickball change.
Good
That's
stuff.
what I'm saying. Mm-hmm.
I'll do some Pippin.
Ooh, yeah. Some miming. I'm in a box. I'm in a box. I'm in a box.
Hello, I'm Joel Ramirez.
And I'm Lolita Robinson Coppage, and welcome to Joy in My House
on latalklive.com. Inspirational radio
with a touch of recovery.
A reality show where nothing is left unsaid.
And no one is insignificant who says it.
Exclusively on latalklive.com. You can also catch us on iTunes Radio R&B or watch us on Ustream TV.
Reality radio handcrafted for your listening pleasure. This is LA Talk Live, and we are more than just talk.
Joshua Lane, member of the board of directors of Dr. Ann Wigmore's Hippocrates Health Institute, Josh Lane was part of the Dr. Ann Wigmore team that brought wheatgrass, sprouts, and raw foods to a worldwide audience. And now the host of Here's to Your Health on LA Talk Live, Joshua Lane.
We're back. Thank you for tuning in to this edition of Here's to Your Health on the LA Talk Live television network. I'm your host, Josh Lane. My next guests, Larry Greenfield, Ben Garcia. Larry has big back lift grips. I met Larry and Ben, who's a champion bodybuilder, at the Joe Wheatley bodybuilding competition a couple of times, July 4th and Memorial Day before that. And welcome to Here's to Your Health. First of all, welcome to Here's to Your Health.
Great to be here.
And so you're a champion bodybuilder.
Yes, sir.
And so you're kind of spokesperson here for Larry.
Absolutely.
So how do I use these grips?
Would you care to elaborate?
All right. Well, actually, I was the one that developed the grips. In the gym, the relationship between the bare hand and a piece of metal has been bedeviling lifters since the 50s and before. And all kinds of little inventions have been come up with. I've seen people use sponges, bathtub stoppers, washcloths, paper towels, anything to give them a better grip. Mr. America, 1967, Don Howarth and Dave Draper, he said they used to cut up bicycle inner tubes and had a little cubby.
Is that what Dave Draper said, really?
That's what Dave Draper said.
Cool.
They used to cut up little bicycle inner tubes, and they had a little cubby on Muscle Beach where they would keep them. And I knew that could be improved on, but I wasn't into all the really complicated gizmos and hooks and straps, which I think are kind of dangerous that they were coming up with. So I developed these. They're a simple rubber pad. They're made here in America.
Okay, great.
And all you do is hold them in your palm while you work out, and they're a perfect size for just kind of staying in there. And this is what you use to grab the various kinds of metal. And they'll do a couple of things. They'll make it a little bit more comfortable grip, which is important, but mostly what they do is they grip the metal solidly. They give you a good bite so your hand is not slipping off. This particular piece of metal is called knurled, the sharp diamond cut metal that
What's
everybody...
it
Knurled, Knurled.
Right.
And it's the diamond cut sharp metal that everybody in the gym has a very love-hate relationship with. We turn it into a complete love relationship because we grip it even better than the manufacturer had intended. But it feels good. It's like when you buy a new pair of socks, a new pair of nice, thick, cushy socks, and you put them on and you go, oh, that feels nice. Same thing when you grab a barbell with a big back lifting grip. You go, oh, that feels good. Now you're free to concentrate on your set.
Larry, this seems like a very simple idea now that you thought of it.
Yeah.
And so has the response by the men and women been good? People are like, oh, my God, this is a nice idea?
It's been amazing. We've been on the market since 2007.
No.
We're now all over the country. I just got back from 2 weeks on the road visiting gyms and supplement stores in Phoenix and Albuquerque and then in Las Vegas, doing demos in some of our dealers. And it's so fun for me to watch the look come over people's face the first time they grab a handle kind of like this that wants to slip out of their hand all the time. Well, suddenly it doesn't want to slip out of your hand. It's just really happy to stay there. And you're suddenly focusing where you want to, which is on the muscle you're working, and not trying to keep a scratchy or sharp or slippery piece of metal in your hand.
Sure. And Larry, by the way, what exactly is this? It's very exciting looking. I thought maybe it was a horsemanship demonstration. What is this exactly?
We left our horse outside. This is actually a lat handle.
A lat handle?
A lat handle, and it works much better when there's a cable attached to it, and there's weight on the cable, and you're pulling it against a pulley. So this is just the handle that you would hold. But like I said, there's weight pulling it out of your hand, and so a lot of people finish their set with their fingers slipping off,
right?
Not with this in your hand.
I gotcha.
There you go.
Okay, lat handles. I actually didn't really know, but it looks very cool. Thank you for bringing that in. And what exactly is this? What am I looking at here?
Ben, do you want to talk about that a little bit?
Sure. That's actually a rope handle apparatus that you'd use either for your triceps or you can even use it for back. Even much better when you're using the grips because like Larry mentioned earlier that it actually holds your grip a lot tighter. For me as a competitor, it's very important that the muscles and the movement relate with each other. You know, the biomechanics, the form is actually very important. And with that, it actually allows you to latch on for a very long time without your hand slipping off of the apparatus. So for me, it's perfect because biomechanically, you can feel the muscles contract a lot better, you know. So for me, it's I can't be without that when I'm training at the
Are
gym.
you have a competition coming up shortly?
I have a competition coming up in the next 6.5 weeks. NPC Tournament of Champions being held in Culver City,
Right.
California.
What's your category?
I'm a middleweight, national level right now. I've decided not to do the USA's after turning national back in May 28th when I took second out of 11 in the Mr. California Championships.
Oh.
It just gives me time for my body to mature, and bodybuilding is a very tough sport. You know, a lot of it is patience, a lot of it is love, you know, labor of love. But we want to take the time because you want to present the best product out there. And for me, that's my physique. So if it takes about a year or so, then I'll definitely do that. You know,
I
wait
do have
a
a
little
question.
bit. Sure.
I was chatting with a fellow my age who remembers the champion bodybuilders, not of the late 60s and 70s. And he commented to me that there has been a move now that there's still bodybuilding,
Right.
but also what we call bodybuilding now has a new name.
Men's physique.
Men's physique for the men who don't want to swallow all sorts of strange drugs and
Right.
have very, very big. And he pointed this out. I thought it was interesting. He said, you know, years ago, you look at people, Steve Reeves and others who had classic bodies in the mid 50s, etc., and later, and they had small stomachs, they had small waists, and they had nice definition. And this fellow felt, I'm just repeating this, that many of the men the past 10 or so years are so massive. They're so massive that when the men all get on stage to compete, you look at their backs, for example, and he thinks, my God, how do you make it? They're all monsters, and you know. And so you said there's a movement. There has been a movement towards the physique model. Is this in your opinion happening?
It's happening big time now. Actually, I believe it's a little bit overshadowing bodybuilding, the sport that I love. If you look back in the circa 1950s, you know, you were talking about Steve Reeves.
Right.
A lot of the physiques are very classic, very pleasingly aesthetic. You know,
They are
to the
pleasing to
eyes.
me. Of course, it's in the eye of the beholder.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
A lot of it now, unfortunately, and you know, I'm not one to judge or anything like that. A lot of it is
You can judge,
It
it's
is
all right.
drug induced in professional bodybuilding. That's just the nature of the game. That's just the nature of the
Right.
beast.
We all know that. That's right.
So
Not a
men's
secret. Right.
physique is a little bit more attainable for the, let's just say, the normal gym goer, the normal guy who just wants to look good,
Right.
you know, for
Right.
the beach or
Right.
for the ladies. But now there's a competition for it. It's easily attainable. If you look at a physique like that versus a guy who's about 300 pounds with maybe 5% body fat, for a male, it's easily attainable to have that beach physique versus the monstrous looking guy at the gym, you know.
And then there's also the aesthetic judgment. The guy
Right.
would think, no, I'd rather have nice bod, but I don't want to be
Absolutely.
300 pounds. It's a judgment call because you can go out and buy the drugs too and then work out and get the monster. And I'm not putting that down because obviously if I take a lot of drugs, I'm not going to look like those guys. There's a lot of work
Oh.
involved. There's craft involved. But it's a judgment call as to what do I want to look like.
There's also it's a bit of a business decision as well. Once they opened up the category to physique to a group of more modestly built guys as opposed to the gargantuan guys, you just have a lot more people involved. You have the opportunity for bigger audiences. You have the opportunity for much bigger competitive fields. One kind.
But that's fair too.
In
Yes.
fact, Ben's contest, when we went to photograph Bennett, there were 350 competitors in that contest. You could not do that. Exactly.
Most of that were comprised of the men's physique.
Of men's
guys,
physique, because
know.
you can't have a contest that big of the gargantuan group. There just aren't that many gargantuan people.
Marketability wise, men's physique is going to be looked at or highly regarded in the fitness world as, you know, it's a little bit closer to reality, people's worlds, because a lot of the professional bodybuilders are not going to be looked at twice, you know, by both men and women, because it's a scary thing for them. But I'd like to bring back the classic look of bodybuilding, you know, in the modern times now. I don't know how far we're going to move with that, but I'd like to bring back bodybuilding in the good light,
Sure.
you know, in a good sense.
Sure.
It's gotten such a bad name over the years.
It continuously, although, Larry, so you've been bodybuilding for a long time?
I've been lifting since I was in college I'll be up front. I'm 56 now. I competed when I was 32. I actually did a couple of contests, and I've been working out reasonably steadily since my early 20s, but most seriously since my late 20s till now.
And so now, because you have such a broad perspective, you know, do you think that bodybuilding, what we call it physique or whatever, has achieved mainstream status and has it achieved that status for at least the last 10 years. I mean, it's like there's no real stigma now. People think, oh, no, we like to do this now.
You know, Arnold Schwarzenegger changed everything. Arnold
yes.
Schwarzenegger
Right.
was so gargantuan, so huge, that he made everybody just a little bit smaller than himself acceptable. He pushed the edge. You know, maybe he was too big for a lot of people, but then you could look at the guys a couple of sizes down and a couple of sizes down and go, well, at least he's not that big. That's a little bit more. So yeah, it's become very mainstream. People know all about it. You know, with the internet and Facebook and all the social media sites, really lend themselves well to bodybuilders because it's a very visual sport.
Right.
It's not something you read about. It's something you like to look at. And it's just kind of put it out there in a way that it's never been out there before. And so it's a much more common part of the general mosaic that makes up everything.
Right. And also, I do remember as a very young man, people said, oh, no, don't lift weights. You'll get muscle bound. Football players can't do it. Basketball players. I actually remember that. And I thought, well, I don't think so. But I was, when you're 14 years old, you think, oh, okay, you don't know. But now, in retrospect, they were so wrong, the authorities.
Mm-hmm.
They were so wrong that it's kind of laughable how dopey they were and how all the men who play professional ball, basketball players, football players, these men do weight training.
And, back in that era, if you saw a bodybuilder on television, they always brought bodybuilders on television for the specific purpose of making fun of them.
Pretty
they
much.
Were always presented as the big, dumb lummox. Now you look at mainstream actors like Ryan Reynolds or Brian Gosling.
The Rock, Dwayne Johnson.
The Rock.
Dwayne Johnson, right.
And, a lot of guys who are very muscular who are now considered that physique years ago would have been all about, oh my God, he's so big. Right. Now it's just considered somebody who works out and attends to that part of his life.
Right. When you work out, I was chatting with Franco Colombo, and I was talking to him about Leroy Colbert.
Yes.
Leroy, who's in his early 80s, and Leroy once said that he used to work out every other day. They would work out, then a bunch of them would get together, ate a big dinner, ate a big meal, and then they skip a day and they work out. And I said, Franco, is that the way men of your era, which is actually my generation, worked out? He said, oh, no. He said, the competition was much too fierce. He said, we worked out every day. Right. Do you work out every day?
It all depends. I do a personal training as my means of living, so I give to my clients for the most part. A lot of bodybuilding, a lot of people are under the misconception that you have to train every single day to achieve a certain level of muscularity. Mm-hmm. Now, the body, we're not all mortal men here, we're not immortal men. So, your body needs time to rest and heal.
Right.
Just like with everything else, you need your sleep, you need sustenance, you need nutrients to rebuild. So working out every day is probably not the best idea because you'll never attain a level of muscularity that way. And muscle confusion, you want to be able to change your techniques. I like to get creative when I'm training. I think that brings the whole artistry of bodybuilding to the forefront of things because bodybuilding, more than a sport, it's an art form as well.
Yes, I think so. Yes.
Front and back, from top to bottom, everything has to match. Everything has to be symmetrical. And I think that's what's being lost out in the sport these days because everyone's so concerned about being massive.
But now there is a movement to go back to,
physique.
Frank Zane in the early 70s used to, because Frank always very well spoken, used to talk about, he was working for definition. And I've actually watched videos of Frank Zane criticizing some of the later generation of men saying, well, okay, look at them, and he also criticized, I got this directly from Frank Zane, they don't have waists anymore. And I thought to myself, oh, that was interesting because I never thought about what the aesthetic judgments were. I didn't really, it's not my sport. But when Frank Zane said that, I thought to myself, okay, I agree with that. I certainly like Frank Zane anyway. And I thought, okay, yes, I completely agree. And you talk about, no, the need for definition and separation of the muscles and something Robbie Robinson brought to the sport. Others did too, but Robbie's sense of dance and poetics. Sure. And, Robbie, I think, kind of influenced a lot of people because Robbie is such a massive, important bodybuilder from the 70s. And Robbie was, had a certain sense of fun and dance that he brought to it, which immediately most people kind of decided, yes, we should go in that direction as well, that, you have to pose nicely. And not that other men didn't pose nicely, but that Robbie, I think, being such an influential fellow, added that.
You know, and Frank also had a reputation as being an excellent poser.
Yes.
But you know, I think you have to remember there's room for all of it.
Yes.
You've got people who like the gargantuan aesthetic is all
Right.
for them, and God love them. That's what they want to do. Go for it. It's good that Robbie Robinson brought what he did and that Frank Zane, but that Arnold brought what he did and Franco brought what he did. Franco really opened it up for shorter bodybuilders.
Yes.
He, you know, the day they cut the giants down to size was one of Joe Weider's articles. And so I think bodybuilding itself has become a really interesting mosaic. And I like the fact that physique is now part of it, but also that the other end is now part of it is too. And now that the women are in there, I remember even in Joe Weider's magazines way back when, he said, yeah, we'll have some pictures of women sometimes, but as for featuring women's training in our magazines, forget about it.
Oh, really?
Well, hasn't he changed his tune?
Yeah.
I think it's just part of the opening up and bringing more people in because there's more money in more people. There's less money in fewer people. It's not that difficult to
No,
formulate.
well, that's a very fair statement. That's a very fair statement. And also, there's more understanding of the equality that we all possess, and so therefore women are allowed to be in the sport. Although, if I can make a comment, I guess an older man's comment, some of the women who train with all the heavy drugs, they really, they don't look like women to me. They look like guys with long hair. But they don't. They really look, women, because they lose their softness. Women have more fat cells than men. So when women have a lovely six pack, that's all nice. But some of the women, I think, this is just my judgment. But I guess these women, they don't care. They want to have these massive arms and legs, etc. And I think, okay. And unfortunately to me, this might be because I'm an older man already. But that seems to me a little bit more freak show for me, because I'm thinking to myself, okay, so these women have achieved this, which is difficult to do. I know it takes a lot of training, but here's the question I have for them. Okay, so now these women they're 25 or they're 30, but maybe when they're 50, just like for the men who are so monster, will there be liver cancer? Will there be prostate cancer? Will there be other cancers? That's a legitimate concern on my part. It's a legitimate concern, So
It's absolutely a legitimate concern, but you use the term freak show. Remember,
yes,
bodybuilding.
I got to be careful with that. Right.
Well,
right.
I wouldn't be. Bodybuilding has always been a little bit of a freak show. That's why people look. I always call Muscle Beach the place where people who like to get stared at go to get stared at even more. Because that's what
Larry, you cut right to the chase, don't you? Okay, very good. Yeah.
Well,
Yes,
you're working so hard to create something that people want to look at.
Right.
People are going to look at it.
Right.
As far as the gals who get really big, this is their choice. They have a picture in their head.
Right.
They want to achieve it. And if you don't like the aesthetic, you have to respect the amount of work and the choices, because when you do that, you make other choices and you leave other things behind.
Right.
But
Right.
this is the world they wanted to live in, and they needed to find out. And whatever they find out later, well, there you go.
Well, one thing that I now possess is when I see the bodybuilding community, something I realize now that I didn't realize in the 60s and 70s is that these are wellness people. This is a wellness community. They don't get that way just from taking some sort of strange drug. They've had to eat carefully. They've got to exercise. They've got to sleep. They've got to get sunshine. I mean, it's wellness. So I don't think that the vegan is the only person who can claim the mantle of wellness. And as a much younger guy and having been a vegan, I can say that I realize, oh no, it's all wellness people, and everyone has their judgment. And that is something which I take for granted now, but I didn't know that 40 years ago. Actually, I've learned that as an older guy. And when I had Franco on, I said to him, he's been on twice. I'm very proud of Franco Colombo on my show. I said to him, Franco, since you're not 23 now, we want to talk about your lats. So he smiled, and I said, Franco, so you're a wellness guy, so let's talk about longevity issues. And he was thrilled to talk about longevity issues, and so was Robbie Robinson. Robbie is 67, and Franco Colombo is 71. And those guys are in the thick of it. Those guys are very much involved with wellness today. They didn't have to retire when they were 22. They're working today, and they're happy about that. They're very happy to be in the thick of it.
I'd like to point out that a lot of these older legends, such as Franco Colombo, Samir Banu, A lot of these guys are living a lot longer now than some of the modern bodybuilders because everyone's needing, kidney dialysis or what have you. A lot of the older bodybuilders
some of them.
looked at it from a health perspective. That's why Leroy Colbert, the man with the biggest arms back in circa 1960s or 50s, was
Actually, 52, 53, 54, wasn't it? That was it. It was a long time ago.
Oh, yeah. We had a great conversation over at his store in Sherman Oaks. A lot of these guys are living a lot longer now because then there was a different outlook from the sport back then. It was from a healthier point of view.
Right.
Nowadays, it's less about health, which is unfortunate. That's why men's physique kind of came to the forefront because besides the aesthetically pleasing physiques, people are actually, it's an attainable physique and it looks much more healthier, besides it being marketable.
Right.
And that's
marketable, but also people aspire to it. They think,
sure.
this makes more sense than having this monster body. So it's marketability, Larry. I certainly agree with you. But also it's like people think, nah, we don't want to do the other thing.
I know a lot of people in the field. As I go out and visit customers, a lot of the people behind the counter of the supplement stores that carry our grips, they're bodybuilders. They work out, they lift.
Right.
And what one guy said to me, he put it very, he says, I used to be a bodybuilder and carry 245 pounds. He says, I go to school, and I work. I can't. It's too much work to maintain that size.
Absolutely.
I do physique. It fits in with my lifestyle.
How much does this guy weigh now?
I don't know, about 200 maybe.
Okay.
But maintaining that size is a full-time devotion.
Right.
The monster guys.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
That's your full-time life.
That's the one thing you can't buy is passion. When you wake up in the morning.
That's right. No, you can't buy passion.
You can buy the drugs, but not the
sleep at night.
passion.
Yeah, no, you can't buy the passion.
that.
And you can't buy the fact that you've got to put a certain amount of intelligent time
Absolutely.
into your program.
That's why when people say bodybuilding is 100% drug-based and a lot of it is egos, and we all have egos. That's why we do the sport. It's an narcissistic sport.
Right.
But a lot of it is passion too. You have to be able to, harness this from within, for you to be able to manifest something beautiful on stage. For me, it is a sport, but it's also an art form. But it needs to be healthier. It needs to be looked at from that instead of a freak show.
Right.
We always looked at the Greek gods from way, way back then as somebody that we'd look up to. Even back in those times, the muscular physiques. I mean, where do you think this whole thing came from?
I would like to think so anyway. Yes.
But I think it's been judged upon these days because of the massive physiques, 300 pounds, 5%. Who can attain that? A natural, mortal man cannot attain such a physique. But like I said, a lot of this is a lot of labor of love. A lot of it is passion. If you don't have passion for this sport, move on to something else. That's what I say.
And where are you competing again shortly?
It's in Culver City, California. It's September 7th. It's called the NPC Tournament of Champions, held by John Lindsay. And it's in the Veterans Memorial in Culver City, California, coming up in the next six and a half weeks.
And what is your weight category again? What do you compete?
I'm middleweight. That's another misconception of.
And middleweight is what exactly?
Middleweight's about 165 to 176, so gives you a perspective. You don't have to be 300 pounds to be massive, because bodybuilding is partly illusion. That's what the sport is.
That's right.
I will point out we are his sponsor. Big Back Grips does sponsor.
Big Back Grips, yes. I assume there would be a tie in here.
Yes.
And Larry, where can I buy your Big Back lifting grips?
Well, you can on Big Back Grips, www.bigbackgrips.com. You can find a dealer here in Los Angeles. We're in almost every supplement store in the vicinity, from San Diego up to Ventura. We're in a lot of the gyms, a lot of the Gold's gyms, World's gyms, Powerhouse gyms. And if you don't have anybody near you, bigbackgrips.com. We're the #1 in category on bodybuilding.com, so you can find us there as well. Or again, you can just find a dealer and hit us up at your local supplement store or gym.
Well, Larry, Ben, thank you for being guest today on Here's to Your Health. It's been fun. I appreciate it very much.
Josh, thanks for having us here.
Thank you. This was a pleasure.
It was fun. You've been listening to Here's to Your Health on the LA Talk Live television network. I'm your host, Josh Lane. We're going to take a short break, and we'll be right back after these important messages.
Hey, shout us out. What's the count? I'm your host, Ferran Dozier. I'm inviting you to join me on WDC Radio every Monday at 11 a.m. Pacific Standard Time as we discuss community topics around health, sports, and entertainment. So don't forget to shout us out. What's the count? On WDC Radio, only on LATalkLive.com. You can also catch us on iTunes Radio, R&B, or watch us on Ustream.tv. Reality radio, handcrafted for your listening pleasure. This is LA Talk Live, and we're more than just talk. What's the count?
Hi, this is Susan Levin, owner and founder of Speaker Services, inviting you to join me and co-host Jean Noel Bassiar on Monday evenings, 5 p.m. Pacific, for our new show, Talk Up Your Business, Speak Your Way to More Profits. We'll be talking to you about how to use your expertise to grow your business or service through speaking. Our expert speakers and author guests will share their stories and success secrets with you. Don't forget to tune in to Talk Up Your Business Mondays at 5 p.m. Pacific, exclusively on latalklive.com. You can also catch us on iTunes Radio R&B or watch us on Ustream.tv. Reality radio, handcrafted for your listening pleasure. This is LA Talk Live, and we are more than just talk.
Hi, this is Elena, inviting you to join me every Wednesday at noon for Elena's Beauty Talk and more, exclusively on LA Talk Live. You can also catch us on iTunes Radio, R&B, or watch us on Ustream.tv. Reality radio, handcrafted for your listening pleasure. This is LA Talk Live, and we are more than just talk.
Special guest host for this segment of Here's to Your Health, Regine Vavasseur, Director of Programs for the Agape Center in Los Angeles. And now your host, Regine Vavasseur.
Thank you so much. And good afternoon, everyone. My name is Regine Vavasseur, and I am a energy healer. And I do 3 different modalities: angel therapy practitioner, theta healing, and reference point therapy. I'd like to talk to you a little bit more about a dear friend of mine who is a fabulous teacher, and she was one of my teachers. And I brought her here today, and we're going to talk to her about some of the wonderful things that she's doing. Her name is Suzanne Peters. And Suzanne, she's from, where exactly are you from, Suzanne? You're from...
I'm originally from the Appalachian Mountains of Virginia.
There you go.
Out in the mountains.
There you go. Okay, so Suzanne has a very interesting past. She was a facilitator. She also did... She was a teacher of many modalities, including some of the ones that I've done and learned from her, as well as she also worked with businesses, higher businesses in terms of, coming in. What would you call that terminology?
Well, I've done several things in business. I've been a management consultant.
That's it.
I have done leadership development and training and executive coaching.
That's
at
it.
Corporate level.
Okay. But today we're going to talk to Suzanne about her overall life path and what started you on your personal growth path.
Well, the universe just set it up that way. When I was 7, my father was an alcoholic and he joined AA. And as he joined AA, what he did was he started reading to my mother and I all the AA materials in the evening. So from age 7, I learned the 12-step program. And, I didn't even think much about it until a few years ago when I started looking at it. But I was already primed by the time I got out of this tiny little town, Richlands, Virginia, into school, where I went to
Okay.
school in Richmond, Virginia.
Okay.
And then I began to study sociology. And sociology, I have a degree in advertising and marketing. So sociology was kind of a big step. Sociology, philosophy, ethics. But I was intrigued by them. And then I found tea groups. And after that, I found personal growth. And it's been this amazing journey. Tells you how old I am, but in 1976, I was taking the S training with Werner Erhard. It's now called Landmarks Forum. But I started in 1976 and was in Madison Square Garden in New York with Werner.
Wow.
And then I went to Insight training seminars, and I worked my way all the way up through their trainer training
Wow.
and was their national marketing director for a while. I was there at the same time Jack Canfield was there.
Wow. Very
And-
interesting.
Yeah, and so then I moved on and I just kept studying and learning and wanting to expand this person that I am, this spiritual being that I am. But coming out of the coal mining country of Virginia, I didn't come out with a really strong self-concept. And so a lot of this journey has been about trying to fix me. On the other hand, what I've begun to realize in my current wisdom is we're not really broken.
That's true. But we're always looking to fix ourselves, aren't we?
We are. We are.
So how did you come to that realization that we're not all broken?
That's a really good question. It's evolved out of my awareness that we really are all a spark of or a part of what I call a divinity or a spark of the universe, that we're all connected, that we're really all one.
This is true.
That there's you look like you're sitting over there in that chair and I look like I'm sitting over here. But there's a connection, like everything around us is energy.
That's true.
And, whether it's the table or the microphone or you and me, and that energy is learning to express. And we're learning to express the spirit. And I've been putting together some new work. I did theta healing and I did reference point therapy, and I still have do reference point therapy or a modified version of it. But I woke up this morning realizing that my new work is really about being ascended beings here in this world. Everybody's talking about ascension.
Right.
It's like it's the hot topic now. Are we going to ascend? Is it going to be the end of the world? And I say no. It's about being more of who we truly are right here and right now.
That's true. That's what I've come to understand, because I was kind of, I don't want to say worried, but I was thinking about it. And I was thinking, okay, so the old is going to fall away, and the ones that were, the folks that were here that were doing the work, being in the light, will become the new, so to speak, and they will continue on. That was kind of what I was feeling. But so I kind of get what you're saying now.
I look all around me, and like 3 years ago, you weren't hearing people talk about, oh, we're all part of one, or there's a oneness at the same level you're hearing it now.
That's true.
If I say that now, people go, oh, yeah, okay, yeah. So what's so new about that? But if I'd said it even 2 or 3 years ago, they would have gone, oh, well, maybe I'm not so sure. I don't know. there's a change that's happening.
Major change, and I'm noticing with everyday people that I talk to, whether it be in the grocery store or what have you, and I, get in a conversation. Everybody is very cognizant with the world events that major change is about to take place. And some are fearful, some are they're just very cautious and looking, really like paying attention. But they don't quite know what to make of it, but they know that some are even saying the energy is different. So it's all changing before our very eyes.
I love it.
Yeah, yeah.
And so in my new work, I come from that point of view. It's called being a conscious soul in alignment.
Okay, so what do you call it exactly?
Becoming a conscious soul in alignment.
Okay, that's it. I thought it was something
Oh
else.
no, it's you can use the initials, you can use whatever.
Okay.
But I'm tired of all these expressions where you can't tell what the heck is going on.
Right.
I want it to be really clear.
Okay.
Okay.
And it is now.
All right. Well, and what does that mean in alignment?
Yeah, what does that mean?
Well, there's the spiritual part of us.
Okay.
That doesn't really usually need too much lining up. But then there's the mental, the physical, the emotional. So the mental is, I call it our ego, and it's a lot of what you see out there where there's still people who are so afraid that they're trying to hold on and get more and be better than somebody else and create war and create and play in that whole right-wrong game.
Right.
And then there's the emotional, the heart. Mm-hmm. And we're told, follow the heart, follow the heart. But how do you follow the heart if there's a wound inside?
Very hard.
It is hard.
Yeah.
It is. And then there's the physical. Here's this body that we have been given to express in.
Mm-hmm.
And it has a lot of talents and a lot of abilities. And unfortunately, if we look around us, we are seeing illness at a record rate. For the first time, what's happening is that children are dying on a statistical level much faster than their parents. There is a lot of stuff going, I think, awry with what we're putting into our bodies.
This is true. And then that whole issue of chemtrails and all these other things that are just being in the air, it's very scary. These are, even though they're exciting times, at the same time, that's a little scary. So we just all have to just stay present and stay in the moment and keep our wits about ourselves.
We do, and I think there are also some things we need to do for the physical body.
This is true too.
Because if my physical body is in an energetic, high vibration,
mm-hmm.
if it's alive and well, then I can come into a balance emotionally and mentally and come into that spiritual alignment much more easily. But if I'm walking around in pain in the physical body, and it's hard for me to move, and everything I eat seems to not work, then it's a lot harder to move into a place of a full conscious being in alignment. It's a lot harder to love. It's a lot harder to have compassion because I hurt.
Yeah.
So I've been looking a lot at food because I think it's really important, and we've been fed, I think, a lot of misnomers around food.
Yes, I think a lot of Americans are beginning to understand and know that our food, what do you call it? The food system.
Big agriculture.
Yes,
is what
big.
I call it.
Thank you. It's not what it was. And what was you coined the term? The amber graves of grain are no longer.
Right. The amber waves of grain are no longer. I mean, wheat is a huge example. There's a great new book, actually, it's been out for about a year, and then called Wheat Belly.
Yeah.
And it's a book by a cardiologist, Dr. William Davis,
Mm-hmm.
and also Dr. Ignatson, who wrote the South Beach Diet, has a new book coming out about gluten as well.
Mm-hmm.
Both of those are talking about the toxicity. Dr. Davis says that all commercial wheat, I don't care if it's whole grain or it's bran or it's this or it's that, it's all toxic to us as human beings. It has been genetically altered since around the 50s. And it is responsible for a whole lot of the illness that we're going through. He says something like, if you drink carbonated drinks or you drink sugar, then you get a blood rise and you get some belly fat and you rot your teeth.
Mm-hmm.
But eat wheat and you get a blood sugar rise. This is a quote. Grow some tummy fat, rot your teeth, and experience increased appetite, addiction, acid reflux, bowel urgency, joint pain, leg swelling, migraine headaches, skin rashes, dandruff, moodiness, sleeplessness, depression, seizures, dementia, and on and on.
Well, I notice when I've been really watching my wheat and getting like organic and or not any at all, and because I know we've talked and you said that even the organic is suspect.
It is.
So just really,
yeah.
But if I have to have it, then if I feel like I want something that has it in there, then I'm really looking at the labels and seeing what's in it and really being careful about it, because it's really, I don't, like I said, I don't want to become where I'm constantly thinking about it.
Right.
Yeah, and driving myself crazy about it. But on the other hand, I want to be more in tune and more aware that this is happening, and to just be conscious of it. So that's the key thing, be conscious of it.
It is. I mean, well, I could go on ad infinitum about wheat, but all genetically modified foods. Dr. Mercola on Mercola.com just came out with an article on what's really going on, all the studies that are now being done with glyphosate. Okay, that's the active ingredient in Roundup. And that's what gets into our bodies when herbicides are sprayed on these genetically modified plants. And, I would encourage everybody to head over to his site and read it, because what he's saying is that the dangers are much higher than we ever thought. And we're eating 193 million pounds of genetically modified foods a year in this country. Now, other countries have outlawed it. Europe and the European Union doesn't allow Roundup anymore. But we're letting our kids play on grass that has been sprayed with Roundup. And you know what? Stuff goes in skin just like it goes into our mouths.
I've seen that advertised. Is that what you're talking about? The Roundup spray? It's
Yes.
something for weeds?
Yes.
Killing weeds?
Yes.
Oh, wow.
Yes.
Wow.
And that, they've directly linked it to breast cancer, birth defects, and a lot of other different diseases.
My goodness. So now I see, the last time I spoke with you, I saw that you were venturing into, you're doing your own products now. So tell us a little bit about that.
Well, I do enjoy gluten-free products, fun food. I'm into fun food. I'm a country girl. I grew up on hot dogs and hamburgers, and I like things like that. I am not a vegetarian. I am very religious about having grass-fed and grass-finished meat.
Okay.
Not badly grown, filled with hormones and antibiotics kinds of meat.
Right.
Okay, but I do feel like there was a really amazing man, Dr. Weston A. Price, in the 30s who went all over the world looking at healthy communities.
Okay.
And he discovered that animal fats are really crucial to us. And any healthy community anywhere in the world that was isolated away from our processed foods
Mm-hmm.
had animal fat in their diet. They also had fermented or live foods in their diet. So, but they didn't have the kind of wheat we have now. So I've started making products so that you can have pizza. All right? I make a gluten-free pizza. It's made with sprouted lentil flour, cauliflower, and either nutritional yeast if you're dairy-free.
Oh, so you finished that? Because the last time we spoke, you were thinking
Yes,
about it.
yes.
Okay, good.
Yeah,
Good.
yeah. And I also make these wonderful gluten-free crackers.
I've tasted those, and those are yummy. Now, where can we get those?
Right now, the one place you can get them, though, they'll soon be online as well. Right now, the one place you can get them is at Culture Club 101 in Pasadena, California.
Okay, which that's your hometown, so to speak.
It is. I live in Pasadena now, and you can find my crackers, my pizza crust, and I've developed something new.
Oh, what's that?
Honey grahams.
Oh.
I have a gluten-free graham cracker.
Oh, that's
everybody was going,
That's good
oh
for
God,
kids.
I want s'mores. Well, you can actually have healthy s'mores because you can make marshmallow
Mm-hmm.
out of real grass-fed gelatin,
Mm-hmm.
raw honey,
Mm-hmm.
water,
Mm-hmm.
and then you can put it on one of my graham crackers, and there's absolutely nothing in it that's bad for you.
Not even the marshmallows?
Not
That have-
even the
okay.
marshmallows.
Okay.
Because it's raw honey and gelatin. That's all it is.
Okay.
And a lot of whipping. It's amazing to watch it change and transform.
So let me ask you this. I'm just gonna kind of go back to the conscious soul alignment.
Yes.
I hope I said
Yes.
I got it all in properly. When you're working, what type of people do you work on? I mean, is it when you get clients that call in, and you do a lot of work over the phone pretty much, right?
I do. I work over the phone. I work with people who are already usually on a path.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, most of the people I work with understand just how powerful our words and thoughts are,
Mm-hmm.
and yet there's something that won't be quiet in their heads.
Yeah.
There's that you're not good enough. And this is a bold exaggeration, but sometimes it's a small thing.
But that's one of the major themes in most of our lives. Let's put it this way: the people that I've worked on, the people that you've worked on.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's a big.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's always about not being enough
Not being enough.
and not being loved.
Right. And
Yeah.
most of what we do to protect that, to keep ourselves safe,
Mm-hmm.
gets in the way of being this conscious soul in alignment. We walk around with this, meh, you're not good enough. You better watch out. You better play safe. Oh my God, if you don't do this, if you don't get that right, then you're not, we have that talk in our heads.
So you're basically trying to constantly catch up
Right.
and be perfect, even though you're not.
Exactly.
I mean, you are in the eyes of the Creator, but
Well,
Otherwise.
and we are.
yes, but
If
in
we
our
can
minds,
get-
we're not.
If we can get those patterns out of our way. Now,
Right.
sometimes we didn't even learn those patterns when we were kids.
Mhm.
We inherited them. They're in our DNA. They're in
Yes,
our genes.
That's true.
So I have some techniques that assist us to clear those
Okay.
energetically so that you can have a quiet mind, so that you can sit in stillness and experience the amazing greatness of who we are, so that you can bring that energy out here into the world, into what we do. I studied with a spiritual teacher once, and he said, love's like an energy or a resource that we make inside us and we put into what we do.
Mm-hmm.
And when we put it into what we do, that comes alive.
Yes.
You see that in great athletes when they reach that pinnacle. Now, this is a long time ago, but I remember watching, I just blanked on her name, this fabulous runner in the '84 Olympics. and she won several golds, and so I blanked on her name. Well, that's life. But she was an amazing runner, and she said, when I'm on, it's like no feeling I've ever had in my life. And it's that feeling that I think we can have all the time.
That's a big order, a big, tall order. And I can't say that I'm all the way there, but I'm
not all the way
Hey,
there.
But that's what I strive for.
But that's what I can, in every moment.
And it gets better and better. So it's just
Yeah.
all about doing the work on ourselves.
It is. It's all about doing the work. I'm available. You're available. You do fabulous work. I've had you in my classes. You're amazing. I am so happy about the connection of knowing you and being a part of where you play, so to
Yes.
speak.
And I so appreciate that. So, Suzanne, what else new is coming up in your arena? Anything else going on?
There is. I have an ebook cookbook.
Oh my.
Called Fun Food.
Okay.
It's healthy, gluten-free, fun food. Hot dog holders.
Okay.
Pizza crusts, crackers, real fermented mustard. How do you make
Okay.
real fermented mustard and real fermented ketchup?
Okay.
All those good things. The kinds of things that we all love to eat. Real pickle relish, not boiled, pasteurized pickle relish.
Now, let me ask you about the fermented foods, because I know you made something for me. The sauerkraut.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my God, it was so smelly.
Well, it is smelly.
It was so smelly. I couldn't eat. I mean, I ate it, but it
You
was
couldn't
just
eat
like
it,
I had to
okay.
put a pin over my nose. So why is it so smelly?
Well, some people don't think it's smelly.
Oh well.
Okay.
Well, anyway,
Some
but it's
people-
good for you folks.
Sauerkraut has been around it was like in 50 AD, the Romans carried sauerkraut with them.
Uh-huh.
Okay?
That's it. That's interesting.
Captain Cook had 60 barrels of sauerkraut on his second trip around the world in the 1500s.
Wow.
And a month before he got back.
And they didn't have refrigerators.
No, you don't refrigerate it. It's a live food.
Right.
Making sauerkraut and fermentation and culturing of all kinds was the way our ancestors actually preserved food.
Okay.
So we are in a place where we're regaining the traditions that we lost. My website, realfoodlifestyle.com, is a place where you can learn a lot about real food and the kinds of foods that enhance within us.
Okay.
We have an inner universe within us, and we need to enhance that with probiotics.
So if you've just given us your website,
Mm-hmm.
but how can people reach you if they were interested in having a session with you of conscious soul alignment?
They can call me at
Okay.
818-590-0062. That's 818-590-0062. Or they can email me at letstransformtogether@gmail.com. That's let's, L-E-T-S, transform together @gmail.com.
Well, thank you so much, Suzanne. It's been such a pleasure talking with you this afternoon. And this is Regine Vavasour signing off. And I can be reached through heartspaceenergyhealing.com. All my contact information is on my website, heartspaceenergyhealing.com. Thank you again and have a pleasant day. And just stay in the moment, folks. Stay in the moment.
Hi, this is Jean Noel Bassior, inviting you to join me for my new show, The Book Beat, Monday evenings at 6:30 p.m. I'll be talking to authors about their latest book so you can find a fantastic read. But more than that, I'll be talking to experts about how you can write your own book and get it published. So tune in on Mondays at 6:30 p.m. exclusively on latalklive.com. And remember, you can catch us on iTunes Radio R&B or watch us on Ustream TV. Reality radio, handcrafted for your listening pleasure. This is LA Talk Live, and we are more than just talk.
West Coast Stand Up, it's your boy Omar Ray, a.k.a. Suge Gotti. Forbidden Tuesdays with the Gems, 9 p.m. LA Talk Live. Let's get it.
Hi, this is Dawn Christie inviting you to join me every Friday, 1 p.m. Pacific, for my all-new show, The Dawn Christie Show. Join me as I discuss love, spiritual readings, your purpose, why am I born, what am I here to do. So don't forget to tune in The Dawn Christie Show at 1 p.m. Pacific, exclusively on LA Talk Live. You can also catch us on iTunes Radio R&B or watch us on Ustream TV, reality radio, handcrafted for your listening pleasure. This is LA Talk Live, and we are more than just talk.
Hi, I'm Ro Williams, and I would like to invite you to join GospelRhythms.com every Sunday at 4 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for our show, GospelRhythms.com Talk Live Radio. Join us as we celebrate Christians around the world in all genres of entertainment, as well as highlight interest stories on men and women who are making a difference and impacting their community. So don't forget to tune in to GospelRhythms.com Talk Live Radio, exclusively on LATalkLive.com. You can also catch us on iTunes under R&B or watch us live on Ustream TV. We are reality radio, handcrafted for your listening pleasure. This is GospelRhythms.com Talk Live Radio on LATalkLive.com. We're more than just talk. We're heaven's party here on earth.
Hello, this is Angela DeJoseph. Join me Thursday evenings at 6 p.m. Pacific for the Angela DeJoseph Show. Join me as we venture into health, wealth. We're going to give you news, interviews, and entertainment. You can also catch us on iTunes Radio, Live 365, Radio Flag, TiVo Radio, and now live on Facebook. Or watch and listen directly at latalklive.com. Reality radio handcrafted for your listening pleasure. This is LA Talk Live, and we are more than just talk.
Joshua Lane, member of the board of directors of Dr. Ann Wigmore's Hippocrates Health Institute, Josh Lane was part of the Dr. Ann Wigmore team that brought wheatgrass, sprouts, and raw foods to a worldwide audience. And now the host of Here's to Your Health on LA Talk Live, Joshua Lane.
We're back. Thanks for tuning in to this edition of Here's to Your Health on the LA Talk Live television network. I'm your host, Josh Lane. And my next guest is a physician, Dr. Jeffrey Hendricks, who developed some important new sports beverages and Halo Water and Riz Beverages. They're here today. They're actually brand new on the market. Dr. Hendricks, welcome to Here's to Your Health.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Happy to have you here. And just as we start out, so where do you have your undergraduate degree and where do you have your other degrees?
Sure. I trained in molecular biology at University of Michigan. Graduated, went to Michigan State University Medical School, then went on to Brooklyn, New York, where I studied trauma and emergency medicine. I also worked at the Howard Hughes Medical Institute for 4 years in the Laboratory for Human Genetics, and then went to the National Institutes of Health Laboratory for Gene Transfer and worked with the now director of the NIH, Francis Collins. And I currently developed these the performance drink Rise and the anti-inflammatory water Halo. And we have a practice in South Carolina called Biogenesis, which is a integrative and functional medicine practice.
Okay, so you obviously have a great science background. What prompted you to put out these beverages? And the reason I ask that is because many people might have thought, oh, you're a physician, you should be focusing on other areas. Why are you focusing on what I feel is very important, but nutrition? What was the prompt?
Sure. It's interesting, actually, when I first got the inspiration for this, I'm a weekend athlete, a triathlete with the focus on tri.
Trying is good.
Yes, trying is good. I was training pretty intensely, and like I do everything, when I get involved in it, I get pretty interested and pretty serious about it. Maybe borderline obsessive, but I got into the nutritional aspects of performance and looked at what was out on the market. I was really disappointed what was available, and with my background in nutritional biochemistry and interest in human physiology and exercise physiology, I was in a fairly position to look at all the research and review what actual ingredients that claim to have benefits in terms of cognitive function, memory, strength, stamina, endurance, and what does the data show and what dosages. And I set out to combine those into a functional beverage. What was interesting is in looking into that, there were 996 energy drinks on the market.
I did not know that.
Started.
Oh, really? Oh,
I didn't know that either.
All right.
And the attrition rate is very high. There's about a 7% success rate.
I see.
So it was not it was an uphill challenge just to get people to pay attention, but I was determined and took a couple years off my medical practice actually to learn how to do this, how to get a product to market. And I wanted to be careful about not just putting good ingredients in a drink, but there's 19 things in Rise, and each one was carefully selected after a review of the literature.
19 ingredients.
19 ingredients. But what I also wanted to make sure was that they were clean and safe. And so every ingredient in every lot of Rise is tested for purity, potency, authenticity, stability, heavy metals, lead, arsenic, mercury, cadmium, nickel, pesticide, herbicide, fungicide, bacteria, virus, fungus, aflatoxin, and a few other things. And then the can is actually, I had corrosion testing done. The can is lined with a protective barrier, which is, I sort of compare it to something like beeswax to protect any leaching from the drink from the aluminum. And then we do this as a hot fill or a tunnel pasteurization, so there's no preservative, no artificial colors, no artificial flavors. And then
Excuse me. So
yeah.
So this beverage has no preservatives.
No.
And what's the technology that allows you to do that?
Tunnel pasteurization.
Tunnel pasteurization.
Yes.
Is this something new?
No, it's not new. It's new to me, but it's
new to me also, actually.
Yeah, it's been around. And then, well, I'll talk about Halo too. That's they're actually they're filled with a high temperature. Their temperature is raised to 185 degrees for 45 or 50 seconds, depending on what your formulation is, which helps to sterilize and purify your drink without affecting the actual functionality of the ingredients.
Well, that seems very modern.
Yeah, it's a little more expensive process, but it's I thought it was valuable, and I wanted to make. My goal was to put together a drink that if you were a professional athlete and you could have anything in the world, and money was not an object, and there was no restrictions, what could we design to be the most effective, efficient, powerful?
That sounds like a very good goal. Good for you.
Thank you.
And so now I have not seen this before. Is the Halo water on the market yet?
Yes, it is. Yep, they're both on the market now. In fact, I'm out here meeting with distributors out here also and overseas. Rise is available in the U.S., in the Midwest, and Myers is a 200-store chain, Myers, that we just launched in. We're about to launch in a chain, Ingles. We started with a couple other chains, Piggly Wiggly. We're hoping to be in Earth Fare, I believe, also very soon.
You're going mass market immediately.
Well, Immediately.
I mean, you're not starting out at say Whole Foods or Lassen's or Mother's or any of the important nutritional chains in California in the West.
Okay. No, I should back up because I'm from South Carolina. Our practice is South Carolina, and we started actually in medical offices in health food stores. And we reached, I guess, a critical mass where we had enough acceptance and enough people repurchasing that we were able to go to some of the bigger chains and get acceptance. When you first start this, I realized that what a challenge it is because of the competitive nature of the food industry. There's so much. We are a 350 million person country, and that's a lot of potential revenue. And these corporations are very competitive. They're fighting for shelf space, and it's really it was more of an uphill battle than I realized. So I started going after them right away, and everybody said, you need to prove yourself first. So we backed up. We went into the market through athletes, through professional athletes, through physicians' offices, wellness offices, and health food stores. And our feedback has been incredible. Our sales have been improving and increasing steadily. And we finally are now taking the next step into more of a larger distribution. We're also distributing in New Zealand. We just got approval for Venezuela. And I'm here meeting with some distributors for the Asia Pac countries also. So,
wow.
Yeah.
That actually sounds very exciting. And tell me, what is in the Halo water? Why would I buy your water, the Halo water, as opposed to another water that might be available?
Well, good question. The interesting thing that I learned, even as though I'm a physician, I had never heard of something called trehalose. Trehalose is a disaccharide sugar that comes from a plant.
That's trehalose.
Trehalose comes from the resurrection plant, which has some unique abilities. It can survive a 100-year drought. It uproots, can roll around the desert as a tumbleweed, a few drops of water, and it comes back to life. That's interesting in and of itself because it helps protect the cell membrane and it helps protect against loss of performance under dehydration stress. A little more research, and I realized we've been using this in medicine for a while. We use it in cryopreservation. We use it in organ transplants because it helps stabilize tissue for transplantation. It increases the viability time of tissue by almost double. We also use it for prolonging the shelf life of platelets. We use it in cosmetics because it helps preserve color and texture. And it also just so happens to release twice the energy of glucose, and it doesn't spike insulin. So that is really attractive if you're an athlete or if you're trying to avoid the ups and downs of insulin and sugar crashing, which is the downfall of a lot of sugary drinks out there.
Yes.
And along that line, I want to say we vilify sugar a little bit unfairly. Now, sugar is not bad. Too much sugar is bad. You need sugar to survive, and your brain runs on sugar. Your brain can't use artificial sweeteners. Your brain can't use fat, and it can't use protein. So you need sugar to fuel the brain. And trehalose actually, once it's in the cell, can release twice the energy of glucose. So that's really interesting. And it can also enter the brain cells through something called endocytosis, which bypasses insulin. So if you have a insulin-resistant patient who has a hard time getting sugar from the bloodstream into the cells, there's a school of thought that thinks that is contributing to some neurodegenerative diseases and worsening of things like Alzheimer's and Parkinson's, and that if we could address the insulin resistance, we could help alleviate some of those symptoms. Well, trehalose bypasses the insulin requirement, as though there are clinical trials that have gone on and are ongoing that are actually looking at trehalose as a potential adjuvant to some of the neurodegenerative diseases. Wow. And it's really promising data, fascinating stuff to me.
And are we growing trehalose in the United States? I mean, where are you getting it?
Trehalose has been available commercially not that long. Actually, to get it out of the plant was very cost prohibitive, and to commercially produce it was difficult. But a Japanese scientist figured out a way to reliably, safely extract it from starch, and I think it's called the Kaibashi company in Japan perfected this, and that's where most of this comes from. So I get it from Cargill, who gets it from them, but this is pure non-GMO, safely produced trehalose. So it should be becoming more of a mainstream ingredient. Probably the biggest knock against it is that it's only 42% is Swedish sugar. So that's prohibited it from becoming probably more immediately mass consumed. But it's still sweet.
I see. And on this bottle of Halo water,
Mm-hmm.
let's say you're going to go out and you're going to do, a little practice run. You're going to do 4 or 5 miles.
Mhm.
Do I drink the whole bottle before I run out? How do I use it?
If I'm going to run 4 or 5 miles, I'll drink Rise beforehand.
Oh, Rise, okay.
Yep, I'll drink Rise because this is really a performance drink. When I'm done, or if I'm doing a long bike ride, if we do 40 or 50 or 60 mile ride, I will use Rise in my water bottles with water, and I will also use Halo water. And when I get done riding, I'll use Halo water to rehydrate. This is really, really good hydration water.
Okay, so this is what I drink all day long. If I'm sitting in the office working at the computer for 8 hours, I will. And so then the Rise beverage you mentioned. Now, what is in the Rise beverage?
Okay, Rise has a couple, well, there's 19 things in it, but a couple of the really interesting things in it. First of all, it has trehalose in it as well. The trehalose and Rise inspired Halo water, actually, but trehalose is in there, and then the other ingredient you may not have heard of is called Huperzine A. Huperzine A is a herb from Chinese club moss. It grows in one region of China, and it's actually the drug of choice for Alzheimer's in China because it's a natural acetylcholinesterase inhibitor. That's a fancy term for something that raises acetylcholine levels in the brain. Acetylcholine is your learning, memory, and strength neurotransmitter. So it's interesting because the drugs we use in the U.S. for Alzheimer's, Aricept or things like that, are very they're acetylcholinesterase inhibitors, but they're very non-specific and they're horrible in terms of side effects, and they're very limited in their efficacy. Huperzine A is much more specific than those drugs, and it's much more potent. So you can use microgram dosages, and it's been used in a clinical trial, at least one double-blind randomized placebo-controlled trial where they used 400 micrograms twice a day, and they showed statistical improvement in stage 2 Alzheimer's patients. Now, I'm not saying that this is a treatment for that. I'm certainly not implying that at all, but it's interesting that the cognitive benefit and improvement was demonstrated in that.
Okay.
So if whether you're an athlete looking to perform and you need spatial cognitive function recognition and pattern recognition and reactivity time, if you're a fighter, you need to move out of the way of a punch, or if you're just trying to concentrate for studying, or if you're trying to prevent the age-related memory loss that we all seem to develop, it has benefits there, and it's clean and it's safe. So in our initial experience, we are actually selling a lot of this to our patient base and to our elderly patient base by the case, which has been a pleasant surprise. But it's really been well received.
Okay, so the Huperzine A, that's great. And what's your third ingredient?
Well, the trehalose, and then the other big ones are green tea extract, which is we've heard a lot about that. There's a little bit of caffeine in it, about a third of a cup of coffee, which is enough to activate the other bioactive ingredients. There's DMG, which is important for immune support and energy production.
DMG, you're bringing that back, are you?
Yeah, I'm bringing it back.
Because wasn't it very popular in the 80s for like a week, a couple of weeks?
It was really
great product, but it just went nowhere.
Yeah, it was an interesting product. There's a lot of good data behind it, and I don't remember what displaced it, but DMG was getting a ton of press, and something came along. Something came along.
Very positive press.
Yeah, and bumped it. It was almost like just something trumped it in popularity, and it got forgotten.
Probably Bran or something.
Yeah, I don't remember, but
okay, so. DMG, fantastic. And what else after that? And after the green tea?
Then rhodiola rosea, which is another herb which has it's called a adaptogenic herb, which means if you're low, it raises you. If you're high, it pulls you back. Really interesting function. But it has been documented to improve immune function. Also helps to deliver oxygen to the tissue, increase your VO2 max. And that's something that a lot of triathletes I saw using before races. They were taking rhodiola rosea right before race. So a lot of this is personally driven
using?
Tablet or pill. This really was inspired for something for myself. I wanted something to give me an edge in competition. I want it to be clean and safe.
Well, that seems fair, doesn't it? It's a nice, intelligent little edge there. Yeah. All right, so after the rhodiola rosea and the green tea, and Huperzine A, and the DMG. These all seem actually very strong. What else?
There's also chromium in it, which helps insulin sensitivity.
How much chromium is in one bottle?
125 milligrams. Actually, but
125 micrograms of chromium in one bottle?
Yeah.
Oh my goodness, that's good.
Yeah.
That's really meaningful.
In fact,
wow.
I'm looking at it right now. I'm not sure if I was supposed to tell you that. Just kidding.
Oh, really?
It's
Okay.
in my proprietary blend. No, I'm joking. It's that's not a big deal.
Because sometimes, formulations in the natural foods, they call it a little bit of sprinkling of fairy dust.
Exactly,
They
yeah.
put 1 milligram of Siberian ginseng. Well, that's not meaningful, I don't think.
And you bring up a really good point. I'm glad you said that, because besides looking at the data on what was effective, the next thing was what was the dose that created the beneficial effect.
Right.
Because you're right, if you just splash it in there, who cares? I remember when Coca-Cola came out with Coke with B vitamins, it was just like...
Oh, I missed that one, really?
Yeah,
Oh, I missed that
splash. I don't know if they still make it or not, but they splashed a little bit of B vitamins basically to say it has B vitamins in it, but I don't think it was efficacious or the amount. So everything is at 100% of the RDA or higher. The other thing I want to just mention, I don't know how much time you have, but I want to bring you up to speed on something really interesting on trehalose. Trehalose has an anti-inflammatory effect in that it blocks something called NF-kappa B in the brain. Inflammation is becoming more and more a culprit for a lot of neurodegenerative and cardiovascular disease. Diabetes, we think, is a type 2, especially as an inflammatory disease at its root. So it's turning out that inflammation is the root of all evil. And inflammation is driving, cancer, heart disease, diabetes, the 3 biggest killers in our country. And the initiator of inflammation is something called NF-kappa B, which is released in the brain, which triggers the downstream effects. Trehalose is a central acting NF-kappa B inhibitor. And if that wasn't enough, it's also it induces something called autophagy, which you probably never heard of, but that's a fancy term for digesting used up protein. And as we age, we accumulate proteins that clump in our neurons. And in Alzheimer's, those clumps are called the neurofibrillary tangles or the beta amyloid plaques. Those interfere physically with mechanical cellular function. Trehalose upregulates the body's natural recycling factories and helps clear some of these abnormal proteins. So they've used this in clinical trials in animals and humans. They've used it in human clinical trials with Huntington's. They use it in a Parkinsonian model with mice, and they showed it cleared the tau protein and the abnormal synuclein in Parkinson's, Huntington's disease, and a couple others. So it's really, we're early on to some of that research and clinical trials, but it's exciting stuff. It's really interesting. And the fact that I only heard about this when I went to develop a sports drink is kind of ironic, considering I'm in the medical field. And when I talk to other physicians, most of them have not even heard of trehalose, don't realize that we're already using it. So this is given the fact that inflammation seems to be a culprit of a lot of the ills of today, that was my inspiration for putting trehalose in a higher dose in an infusion of water that is a anti-inflammatory water.
May I ask you a question at this juncture?
Yeah.
Are you the first beverage to use trehalose in the United States? You don't have to mention any other brands.
Yeah.
Are you the first?
I think that I'm the first to use this combination in this dose. I'm not aware of anybody else who's done this. I'm pretty sure I'm the first to market in an anti-inflammatory water, but I don't want to say.
Are the Japanese using it in Japan on a regular basis? Are they using it? Are they ahead of us on this one?
Well, they developed it, so they're ahead of us in that sense. But I'm not sure how much commercially they're ahead of us. I'm actually here discussing distribution into Japan with somebody.
Good for
on
us.
Yeah,
good for
so,
us.
yeah.
Hey, good for us.
Yeah.
Okay, so after the 125 milligrams of chromium picolinate, is it chromium picolinate?
Uh-huh.
And what's the next ingredient?
There's L-carnitine, which is a molecule that allows transfer of the fat molecule across the mitochondrial membrane where it gets degraded to produce ATP. Yeah, ATP is our molecular unit of energy. Nothing happens in the body without it. So when you talk about an energy drink, when you want to know what energy is a molecule called adenosine triphosphate, or ATP. Nothing happens in the body without it. You don't think, digest, metabolize, grow, sleep, or do anything.
Right.
So our goal is to produce ATP. And energy is not high doses of caffeine. Energy is not artificial stimulation of the central nervous system with some herb, and it's not liquid NODOs, which we see in a cute little shooter bottle now available and selling billions of dollars worth. But energy is actually produced through a process called ATP. And so at the root of this drink is the desire to maximally produce ATP in the cells, and to provide ingredients that help give you the substrate to produce it, ingredients that help the cells utilize the energy, and ingredients that help the cells then communicate with each other. And that's the design of the drink, and it's pretty effective.
Fantastic so far. Okay, what else, Doc?
What else? Let's see. You want to know what else is in it?
Yeah.
Okay. So what have we gone over? We've gone over trehalose, the carnitine, L-tyrosine, which is also important for, it's a precursor to thyroid hormone. It's also important for immune function. There is a little bit of caffeine. I do want to mention that there's about a third of a cup of coffee of caffeine. Caffeine is vilified by the media, and somewhat appropriately so, because it's being abused and overutilized. But in the medical industry, caffeine has very specific and very well-documented benefits. It helps recovery time in exercise. It helps performance. It helps cognitive function and cognitive performance. It helps stimulate blood flow. And we really want to increase the penetration of the good nutrients to the parts of the body and the brain that we can use them. And so you use a little bit of the ginkgo, a little bit of the ginseng, a little bit of caffeine to open those things up and let all of the nutrients get where they need to go. Your body has 3 trillion cells, and all of them need energy. All of them need nutrients. And so this is something to provide something for all 3 trillion of the cells.
Well, that's very impressive. So now the nutrients you have, by the way, is it any good for ALS? Any helpful in any way?
ALS, that's something near and dear to me. I don't know anything that is good for ALS, although if you look at the Mayo Clinic website on things that help cognitive function, cognitive decline, memory, they list 7 nutritional things that are in there. They're all in RISE, and I know we don't have time to go over everything that's in there. They are all in there. But ALS is an interesting animal. I've done a lot of work with a lot of patients on it. I actually petitioned the FDA when I was in Michigan to allow us to use something that was a human growth hormone reverse combination recombinant DNA form of it, and had one of only 2 patients in the state that were using it. And in that patient, we actually had he came to me one day and he said, "How am I doing, Doc?" And he couldn't lift his hand, and we had been about 6 months into treatment, and he was able to lift both his hands and move his legs. And I said,
Oh, good.
I said, you may be the first person that I've ever seen, or that has ever in the history of mankind had any improvement of any symptom with ALS ever. Now, the study ended, and there were mixed results, and we're still a long way off from a good treatment. But ALS is just a nasty disease. I've had several patients, too many patients with it, and deteriorate from it. So anything that we can do to raise awareness for that, I'm in support of. In fact, I went on one patient with it asked me to go with him on a tour of Route 66 when he was diagnosed. He was a Corvette aficionado, and he wanted to, before he died, he wanted to ride it beginning to end. So we put together a big fundraising tour and rode it beginning to end, and I think he raised $350,000 for.
Well, that's very nice.
For the cause. It was neat. But.
That's very nice.
Oh.
So listen, actually, we're speaking. You're listening to Here's to Your Health. We're speaking with Jeffrey Hendricks, MD, who has new beverages, Halo Water and Rise. I think we call it sports beverages, a very fair thing to say. It's a very impressive discussion. So the Halo Water and the Rise beverage, where can we get it now, and where can we get it in the future?
Okay. Well, you can always visit our website, which is riseperformance.com or halohh2o.com. We have many sites up. We're building the big full site that should be up in about 5 days or 10 days. We're in Myers, which is a Midwest chain, Ingles, which is a Southeast chain, and we're working on some more. Ask your stores to carry it. They can call us, and we're working with some big distributors. We're coming out west. But we're still in that process right now. In fact, I signed something yesterday, but I'm not sure I can talk about it yet.
Okay,
so.
you don't have to. It's okay, no problem. We like good gossip here, but you could hold on to it. Dr. Jeffrey Hendricks, this has been really very remarkable, and I was wondering if you could stay over for another session. We'll do another segment, and Dr. Hans Kugler will interview you.
Oh, sure, absolutely.
That'd be fantastic.
Sure.
You're listening to Here's to Your Health on the LA Talk Live television network. I'm your host, Josh Lane. We're going to take a short break, and we'll be right back with Dr. Hans Kugler and Dr. Jeffrey Hendricks, live on Here's to Your Health.
Hi, this is Dr. Levi, your fitness doctor, making a personal house call, inviting you to join me Wednesday at 10 a.m. Pacific for my all-new show, The Dr. Levi Show. Join us as we discuss fitness, health, and well-being, including emotional and spiritual health. So don't forget to tune in to The Dr. Levi Show every Wednesday at 10 a.m. Pacific, exclusively on latalklive.com and the Talk Live Broadcast Network. You can also catch us on iTunes, Radio R&B, or watch us on Ustream.tv, or catch us on the Live 365 network, and now on Radio Flag and Stitcher Radio. Reality radio handcrafted for your listening pleasure. This is LA Talk Live, and we are more than just talk.
Hi, this is Elena, inviting you to join me every Wednesday at noon for Elena's Beauty Talk and more, exclusively on LA Talk Live. You can also catch us on iTunes Radio R&B or watch us on Ustream.tv. Reality radio, handcrafted for your listening pleasure. This is LA Talk Live, and we are more than just talk.
In the burgeoning field of anti-aging medicine, Dr. Hans Kugler, professor at Roosevelt University in Chicago and president of the Academy of Anti-Aging Medicine in California, has been on the cutting edge. The author of Lifelong Health, Learn How to Control Your Genes to Stay Young with Age, and now the host of Here's to Your Health, Hans Kugler.
Well, welcome back to Here's Your Health. And it was an absolutely fascinating first half. We're talking to you. And that was actually mostly my major complaints about MDs. They don't know anything about biochemistry, right? I mean, my background is basically physiology under Nobel laureate Buchanan in Munich, right, at the medical school. And then my PhD at Stony Brook, basically organophosphorus compound action and so on and so on. And that led me into basically aging research. I was at Roosevelt University teaching pre-meds, the chemistry, and at the same time doing longevity studies and getting into a lot of the basic, at that time, established anti-aging modalities, right? Now, there were so many people that were trying to demonstrate the effectiveness of one of the other ingredients. Well, that was really interesting, but for me, I was getting older already at that point, right? I wanted to apply all these things and therefore see what I could gain from that. And the major longevity study that we did, actually we had about 40 different studies going on. We had Swiss albino, Jackson Laboratory mice, and we have rats, and we used even guinea pigs in some of the areas, et cetera, et cetera. But a key point was that we took retired breeders, Swiss albino mice, very much the same rate, growth of cancer in humans, et cetera, and we put them under three conditions. The one was we put them under all the mistakes people make, right? Limited environment, a diet high in relatively fat and sugar, no exercise. We blow cigarette smoke through the caging, tap water as a drinking water, and so on and so on. How wrong can you get, right? Yeah. and then we had the control, sort of everything standard, and then we had the treated animals. And the treated animals appear in a rat chow that I put the diet together that I asked them to, and we also have a little bit larger cages. But the key point here was naturally they had no cigarette smoke blown through the cages, and they were made to do exercise 3 times a week. And at that time, my then mentor, I could say, the Professor Emanuel Cherasco from Alabama University School of Medicine, right? He defined lifelong health as a state of homeostasis achieved by doing about 50 variables correctly, and a lot of them are nutrients that you were talking about, right? And he basically said we always focus just on one or the other things, extremes. Why don't we use all these things together? And he saw one of the longevity studies. When he saw that, he said, well, tell me a little bit more. And so I told him what some of the things were in there in terms of nutrients. He said, you're going to get about 100% difference. And I thought, oh, that's almost impossible, right? But see, we were looking at animals that were doing everything wrong and not just controls and treated animals, right? And the difference came out to about 96%, right?
Interesting.
And that was totally fascinating, right? And from there on, Jaraskin and myself, we did a couple of projects together. That means whenever we were talking about lifelong health, the variables, we grouped them together as health practices. And when we did that, a lot of people in aging research said, oh, well, this is just health practice. This has nothing to do with aging research, right? Well, in the meantime, telomere research has confirmed many of these health practices as true aging modalities, or to be a little bit more precise, the good health practices as anti-aging modalities and the faulty health practices through aging modalities, right? And like in the meantime, we know now, for example, that stress is the strongest telomere shortening factor, right? And guess what? Exercise is the strongest telomere lengthening factor. As a matter of fact, that at Dresden University in Germany, they did a study where they looked at the telomere length of older people, the rate of shortening, and they found that resistance exercise, not just regular exercise, resistance exercise actually prevented telomere shortening by close to 75%.
That's
right?
really interesting.
And
it's interesting. You touched on a lot of topics, but what really is interesting to me is that we have my biochemistry knowledge or studies that I did in medical school. I didn't like them at the time, but now I'm going back to all of those pathways, all of those little reactions, and looking at them, looking at the cofactors. Because some of what's happening is the folklore of herbs and medicines and vitamins and the benefits and the effects is catching up. The science is catching up with the folklore. We're proving some things work and why. We know vitamin C is beneficial. We know folic acid is beneficial, and we know why now at the molecular level. Before, we just used to know that people did better, or had better memory, or did something, and it was kind of non-scientific. So we're learning some of the science catching up with the folklore, and some things are being proven to be beneficial, and some things are being proven to not be beneficial. But the absence of kind of looking at nutrition from a traditional medicine standpoint, it seems to be only alternative or functional medicine practices, and then traditional medicine practices. The blending and the complementary usage of these things is not happening very fast, and we're learning how nutrition can actually affect not just telomeres, but actually gene expression. We can use nutrition to shut off genes, to turn on certain genes. They can prevent or promote cancer risk. So we're really at an exciting time and an interesting time. And we've learned more in the past 25 years than we've learned in the history of mankind, and it's happening
I absolutely agree.
at an accelerated rate.
Yeah.
So a lot of things that are a lot of research happening right now at the National Institutes of Health and in nutritional biochemistry laboratories across the country and the world will have significant impact, and we don't even know what they're finding yet. We don't even know all of the things that we'll be able to influence with nutrition, but we are learning more and more the critical importance of nutrition and as a preventive and as an adjunct to good health.
Right. Yeah. When you mention the gene expression, right? People very often don't really understand how complex that is. I mean, let me give you a little bit of an example. Let's say there's a trigger mechanism that says enhance your immune functions, right? Okay. So that little chemical goes to the surface of a cell where things are happening. Obviously, it's too big to get inside the cell, so there's a lock and key mechanism, right, where it actually attaches to the outside of the cell. It passes a message to the inside of the cell. Then a prostaglandin is formed that goes to the nucleus, and the nucleus, it copies a section of the DNA, and it forms a messenger RNA, and then it goes to a workbench, where actually the chemicals are put together, and you have the transfer RNAs and the messenger RNAs, they all working together, and it works. Well, what's very interesting about this is two factors, and you touched on both of them, right? The number one is that these various different pathways, 4 of them can be affected by genetically modified foods, by some of this junk that we're putting in our body. And anybody who doesn't believe this, I would suggest go to my website, the antiagingforme.org, or the drhanskugler.com, and you will find work by Cirolini from Caen University in France, who fed genetically modified corn, the 2 types, right? and you fed it to animals, to test animals. You could see humongous tumors, cancers, organ malfunctions, and so on. Right? I mean, it's just amazing. And on the other hand, again, the resistance exercise can really support the normal genetic expression. To me, this is absolutely fantastic. And you also had a molecule in there, dimethylglycine. I've been taking this forever, right? I mean, many years ago, Da Vinci Laboratory actually induced it, right? And they had a little in the silver foil, the sublingual form, and so on. And, dimethyl, with the oxygen supplied to the tissues, and so on and so on. But another factor I found was really very interesting that I'm totally impressed with your work. Thank you. Magnificent, really. And anyway, the key point with the inflammation. I mean, a few years ago, even Time magazine had a big cover story pointing out that inflammation is a starting point for literally every health problem there is. Right? And aiming at that, I mean, reducing inflammation and so on is an absolute key part.
Yep. I thank you for saying that. In the dilemma or the challenge is you've got now some data that shows epigenetics in play and increasing genetic risk with nutrition. We're trained traditionally, and the challenge is how do I implement? What is a step I can take to beneficially influence my gene expression? And we're starting to learn examples. There's a great example that I think if you look at estrogen metabolism in women, and you look at we found out that the actual carbon molecule that gets hydroxylated and then methylated before excretion, whether that happens on the 2-carbon or the 16-carbon, actually works as a gas pedal for cell division, which could induce a cancer, or a brake pedal for cell division. And we find that we know what the cytochrome in the liver is that induces that, whether it's 1A1 or 1B1. And we find that a molecule called diindolylmethane or indole 3-carbinol from cruciferous vegetables, namely broccoli, will beneficially turn off cytochrome P450 1A1 and turn on 1B1, and beneficially reduce your breast cancer risk. And so there's a good example of then putting into clinical practice, applying by taking a capsule of diindolylmethane, because you can't eat that much broccoli in one day, but putting it in a capsule, you can actually mitigate
or
some
reduce
breast
the
cancer.
estrogen side products,
Right.
right? When you do a blood analysis, like for example, if you take testosterone shots and so on. I mean, some of the metabolic side products of those different types of estrogen, and the DIM will prevent that.
Yeah. And you can do a ratio of the 2-carbon to 16-carbon. A simple blood test is not very expensive. You can order it. You can see what the ratio is, and then you can implement treatment. You can recheck it 3 months later, and you'll see a change. It's very simple. It's been reproduced data in animals and humans for over a decade.
I've been taking it forever.
And nobody in traditional medicine circles is even probably aware of the test, at least to my knowledge, and it's not being taught. So I don't remember who I saw that said this, but it was very telling about the change, the rate of change of the dogma of medicine is really slow, and that it takes almost 20 years for a good idea to be adapted into mainstream medicine.
That is the very sad part, you know. And actually, more than a year ago, the idea that we have to change back, not really change back, let's say instead of this pharma-based disease management, that we go back to true healthcare. Right. And the scientific data there from Churaskin, I mean, this is absolutely clear, right? I mean, define lifelong health, best possible long-term health, which is synonymous with fitness, sexuality, best immune functions, best recovery, right? Slowest rate of aging and other stuff. The data are there. Churaskin, God, it was 20 years ago that he published this. It was genius, right? And people went, oh, yeah, well, when I mentioned that to them, and then I give them something, wow, this is really neat stuff. I didn't know about that, right? And so we had also, you should meet Dr. Gregory Smith from UCLA, who made the movie American Addict, right? And he actually, a very aggressive, magnificent thinking, et cetera, MD, also associate professor at UCLA, gets so upset about what's happening in Orthodox medicine that he takes his own money to make that movie. I mean, about a year ago, I was invited for Hollywood movie screenings. I have nothing to do with movies, right? And so on. We all went. We had our names on every chair, and then in walks there. Big guy, looks like Magic Johnson, his prime time. Oh, Dr. Gregor Smith, MD, Associate Professor, and so on. And you take a look at that. It's absolutely magnificent. It's going to be released in just a few weeks, right?
Great.
On a national basis in
What's
different
the name
things. American Addict.
American
right?
Addict.
Basically, what he's saying is, I mean, like, for example, what was the last thing he quoted us? He says, well, we are only over 5% of the total population. Yes, we are using about something like 60% of all the pain drugs and everything. It's totally off ratio, right? And we're therefore initiating a drive. And I'm trying to convince A4M and have convinced some of those people that we all come in with that, right? And to really demand that we're getting back from this drug company dominated, I mean, disease management, which is really, it started 150 years ago when we discovered penicillin, right? Okay, there was a disease, an infection, and there was a drug, that cured the infection. Therefore, for every disease, there must be a drug to cure it. I mean, it's about the dumbest thing ever. And I don't know how medicine get along with something like this, but they're doing it, right? And
I'm sorry, go ahead.
But, and very simply, develop the various different health practices, specify them a little bit more. I mean, really down to earth. For example, with exercise. I mean, exercise is number one thing. And out of all the longevity studies comes that exercise is about 50% of everything out there, right? And you do our longevity studies without exercise, everything drops by 50%. And they said, oh, yeah, well, it can't be, blah, blah, blah. Well, there's a guy, Roland and Lemon, a couple of years ago, confirmed that with the longevity studies. They tried to put a bunch of nutrients, the best possible nutrients together, longevity studies, right, on highly susceptible animals to, immune problems. They only got I think a 26% lifespan increase by combining everything, So it all falls into place, but there is this big interest that doesn't want to let go. It reminds me to some degree of environmental factors, right? I mean, we know from NASA and everybody else we are on the downhill with that, yet nobody does anything about it. I mean, or the special interests prevent that.
I mean, I think you're absolutely right. And we have been a medical practice, medical field of reactivity, not proactivity. And what needs to change is the front of innovation needs to shift from designing new drugs to treat old problems and from designing new diagnostic ways to diagnose old problems. We need innovation in terms of being able to diagnose and intervene on predispositions. And for example, if you look at the way we do a glucose tolerance test, we measure blood sugar over 5 hours when we should be measuring insulin levels over 5 hours, because if we measure insulin, we can see insulin resistance developing 5 years before diabetes type 2 develops. And if you treat insulin resistance, you're treating a predisposition and you can prevent something. If you treat blood sugar, you're reactive, you're treating after type 2 diabetes. And so that's an example of what I really think needs to happen in medicine is innovation needs to change. The front of innovation needs to be shifted towards finding and identifying predispositions, and then finding and identifying interventions that will affect predispositions, because then you get to true prevention instead of treatment.
Right. The interventions that very basically go back down to health education, right? And that's what basically you did in my. I came out of a book published as an ebook, right? I have 8 books out there basically on anti-aging. And the last one as an ebook, that's not really a good idea. Everybody says, oh, there's millions of books are being sold as ebooks. Yeah, probably by 100,000 authors, and each one sells 100 copies, right? And so on.
That's probably being generous.
But the key point here is we have all the data, right? I mean, I actually developed a computer program that was once used for health education with patients, right? We looked at their health practice and we basically went number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This is what you should be doing, and it's all there. We can do it. No,
absolutely. It is.
Anyway,
I'm
but
glad
you also mentioned creatine in there, right? I mean, what was the reason for putting creatine in there? Actually, it's basically pro-anabolic or whatever, a little bit.
Yeah. Well, there's two schools of thought on creatine. It helps the muscle to retain fluid for developing muscle, but if you use too much of it, you can get over fluid retention. You can get loss of fine motor function. So it's really
Exactly what I told a
amount.
bunch of people about exercise, right? I used to be on the board when it was Health and Tennis Corporation, which was Holiday Spa in our area here, and then that was sold to Bali Fitness, and now it's LA Fitness, and so on and so on. What would you define as an excess with creatine?
That's hard to answer. I think it's very individualized, and it depends what your goal is. If you're a bodybuilder and you're really trying to get big mass, and you're not performing a high eye-hand coordination, very delicate, sensitive maneuver, I think they can use a lot more and get away with it. I'm going to be evasive on a dosage on that, but I think that.
Could we possibly agree that maybe a third or maybe a little bit less of a tablespoon wouldn't really hurt anybody?
I think that's reasonable. Yeah. Absolutely. I mean, even in the high doses, when you get to the negative effect, which would be the loss of the fine motor function, it's still going to be a subtle effect, and it's not going to be a big deal unless if you're a basketball player, a golfer, or a musician. That's something that you really need every little fine motor skill.
Yeah, but I don't think as a musician you need a lot of bulk, right?
No, you don't. No. So,
well, a lot of these things, interestingly enough, Arnold Schwarzenegger. I was on tour with him many years ago before he became governor, right? And he was very much, this guy was so sharp at what was important in that and all this, maintaining muscle mass and so on. And I had some magnificent, funny experience. We were in Detroit on what they call the most insulting radio talk shows ever. They told us ahead of time, this guy will insult you. Just to get the ratings, you walk in the studio, big glass wall, audience behind it, a big round table. They sit you back there, and the host is here right next to the door. And if anybody tries to get him to beat him up, he goes out the door, and there's no handle in the door. And the host starts the interview with, "Oh, well, everybody out there, here we have the Arnold Schwarzenegger and Dr. Hans Kugler and Arnold Schwarzenegger bodybuilding. Let me start this interview with a question to you, Mr. Schwarzenegger. How does it feel to have all muscles and no brains?" Right? What an insulting thing. Arnold just smiled at him and he says, "Let me answer this with a counter question. How does it feel to have neither?" and then I jumped in it, right? And I said, "But Arnold, I have to agree with the host." And Arnold just looks at me from the side. "What the heck are you talking about?" Right? Anyway, I said, "Well, the host said, too bad you can't see that." Well, if you would see the host, he is fat, overweight, bald, smoking cigarettes. Obviously, he would be laughed off the stage and so on. My experience, I was also on the board with health clubs where Arnold gave a lot of talks and work with us. He was one sharp cookie.
Yeah, you can't get to that level in his sport without being knowledgeable. I had the pleasure of meeting Lee Haney, who's also an 8-time Mr. Olympia, and it was impressive to hear the level of detail and how specific these guys were down to every little facet of their nutrition and training. And no matter what criticisms you say, these are people that were dedicated to the level of obsession with everything, and they lived it, and they saw the difference firsthand, and they knew what worked and what didn't, and nobody will be able to tell them differently. And they have a earned base of knowledge that very few ever will reach in terms of that.
Yeah. Well, in my case, some of the things, I was always into that aging research interests, right? And I was over into fitness training for different reasons. Long time ago, back in Germany, my family comes from East Germany. We totally ran out of money, so I was crazy about airplanes. At age 30, I joined the glider club. So I joined the Air Force, right, to fly jet airplanes. Right, at that point, if the hydraulic would go out, you would have to wrestle this thing. You have to be strong like an ox. So we did heavy weight training and so on for different reasons. But it was nice that it was always in the same direction. And I had an extreme car accident. We talked about that here. And a young kid bought an oversized truck 2 hours before, ran through a red light. It turned out later ruptured parts in my heart. My left atrium was 6.8. I had an ejection fraction of 28%, extreme AFib. And every expert said nothing could be done about it. And I applied a lot of these nutrients. An Olympic trainer, Dr. Paul Ward, found for me that, for example, heavy weightlifting strengthened left atrium walls, right? And then Heidelberg and Tübingen University, they developed something very close to stem cells. They isolated from embryonic tissues the active trigger chemicals, low molecular weight nucleic acid, peptide, and growth factors. And we used that, put it all together, and totally back to normal, right?
Wow.
And in 2009, A4M gave me the best speaking spot Saturday morning at 11 o'clock, when even the last night owl comes to a meeting, you know? And I mean, I feel there's a directing force. I always say, thank you up there.
Yeah. Somebody was looking out for you. That's an amazing story.
Yeah, it is. And then somebody had the nerve in my book to say, why did you have to bring God into that, right? I said, when I heard that everything was fine, I climbed in my airplane and went to 11,500 feet. I said, thank you for giving me the brains and the friends to achieve all that, you know?
It's also your book. You get the right to write whatever is personal and meaningful to you, right?
Exactly. So I gave him the $7.50 back that he paid for my ebook. Anyway, so yeah, that is really absolutely magnificent. I mean, it's very nice to see. We'll talk a little bit more after the meeting here and so on. And I have a whole bunch of MDs that are really open-minded in our area. Some of them we had on the show here before, and I'd like to, introduce them to some of the things so on here, right?
Sure.
Now, with your own exercise program, how much do you do? I mean, what do you aim at?
Well, I'm a triathlete wannabe, but mainly right now I'm doing running and cycling. But if I have my if time permits, I run one day, I bike the next day, I run one day, bike the next, and I'll usually run 5 miles and then bike anywhere from 25 to 65.
Oh yeah, very good. Yeah. Okay.
Someday I'm going to be fast. That's my goal.
Well, yeah. Well, in my work, I work with some of the doctors. I do actually health practice counseling, right, with people, and I can be reached here. I'm in Torrance, right? 310-326-8625. That's the Health Integration Center. And 310-326-8625. And the website's antiagingforme.org and drhanskugler.com. And hopefully we start out there and we look at your material and we look for a better future.
Well, I appreciate it. And if anybody is interested in the South Carolina region, our medical practice, our website is biogenesismedicalcenter.com. And we are in no relation to the Biogenesis. It's in the news with the athletes.
Give us the websites again.
That's biogenesismedicalcenter.com. And you can call us at 800-676 7542. Or you can call 864-457-4141. And
Anyway.
my wife, Dr. Piscini, is also an integrative physician and medical director there. And,
that's where you live full time?
Yeah.
Right.
And I'm sure she would have wanted me to say hello to you. She'll be disappointed she didn't get to meet you.
Anyway, well, magnificent. That was one of the best segments we had in a long time here.
Thank you.
I mean, I
My
totally
pleasure.
appreciate when people know about biochemistry.
Yeah, thank you. It was
My big
pleasure.
thing. Hey, and thank you. Come back next time, and it will be better and better and better and better, and you will get healthier and healthier and healthier. And you start with doing some exercise. Take your dog, take your wife, take your girlfriend, take your rabbit for a long walk. It will be good for you.
For more information about the guests and sponsors of Here's to Your Health on LA Talk Live, please call us at 818-707-0005.